I try to wait for these to come to notify me
Mhm.
that that we're on. And okay, here we go. And we are live. And I'm here with my friend and my neighbor Brad.
Hi, everybody. Hi, people of the internet.
Oh, I forgot my apron. Hold on just a moment. I have to I have to grab my I feel naked without it. Do you feel naked without yours? Yes.
So
Yes.
it's definitely important.
It is. So, I also want to tell you, you might want to talk about your Airbnb also.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
been a new adventure of ours. Tom and Andy are such good friends of ours.
husband.
Husband and Calamity Girl.
Whoa! Whoopsie. Little calamity there. Okay. All right. Okay. We're a one man band. Let's do it again.
What's Calamity Girl without a little calamity?
Yes, yes. Okay. Yeah.
So we're going to get started
We are,
here.
and we have a lot of things that he's done ahead of time that he's going to tell us all about. And
Yeah.
so I'm learning with you.
So basically, I just wanted to give a little bit of, you know, baseline on sour. Achieve that process.
Hmm.
Here we're at super high altitude.
Yes.
So baking and baking bread is a challenge. Big part of that is going to be you playing around, doing lots of your
Hmm.
own method of what I am going to teach you
Hmm.
but everybody is always a way of doing it, and it just depends on starting somewhere with
Hmm.
the ground, and then you can break or make new rules as
Now, before we start that, people are still filing in. So let me ask you a couple questions while
yeah,
they do, and let's say
absolutely,
hi to some people because we
absolutely,
have to say hi to everybody. That's kind of my thing.
good.
And so here we have going on, all the different people. So the ones in blue are the people who moderate. True, she is my heart. Who do you, True? Who do you love
Moderating
you?
internet chats is not the easiest thing in the
It is
world, so good for
not.
you.
Yes. Scanner May. Oh, May. There you go. Yes. And Gloria, Gloriana, Gloria. Should we sing a duet? Gloria,
Gloria,
you're always on the run now.
Gloria.
There we go. Okay. Michelle H. from Canada. Another Canuck. Who? Good to see you. Good
Good
to
to see
see
you.
you. Oh, your mic is cutting in and out. Okay, one moment. We can fix that. Just one moment. Okay. Okay. Let me fix that. Okay.
Switch out.
Yep. Oops. Okay. And there's one, and here's okay. Here you go.
Perfect.
Let me see. Okay, how's that working? Is that if give me, let me know if it's working. Can you hear? Is it going well?
Thumbs up in the chat.
Mm-hmm. And on the screen too, that would be helpful as you come in. Thumbs up if you can hear us okay. And there's a little bit of a delay. Okay, it's way better. Okay, boom. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, Brad,
Yes,
a couple of questions I have for you.
yes.
Are you willing to play along?
I play. I am
Okay.
playing along.
Okay, well, we have to wave to everybody first. And if you can, and you probably don't have it, We do bat wings. Who do you? Who do you, everybody? Who do you? Yes. Okay. Okay. Brad, I know these questions, but they don't. Where are you
Yes.
from?
So I grew up in Minnesota, the Great
Mm-hmm.
White North,
Mm-hmm.
and I just love the snow and the cold so much that I moved back out to somewhere that it's snowy and cold.
Perfect. Yes. Yes. To West Central Wyoming.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. And so, how long have you been a chef?
So wow, that's an interesting question. I have been a chef for about 13 years, or I've been working with food for about 13 years. I started in restaurants when I was about 16 years
Mm-hmm.
old,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of, washing dishes and doing prep.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to learn and I wanted to show up and do a good job. So I kind of moved my way up through the ranks. And
Mm-hmm.
by the time I was in my early 20s, I had the opportunity to get a sous chef position at a nice restaurant where I was living in Missouri, because
Okay.
that's where I ended up going to college. So
What part of Missouri?
that was Columbia, Missouri.
Okay.
So I ran or helped run a really fun steak and seafood restaurant there. And when I was doing that, I said to my chef who I was working with, maybe I should go to culinary school. Maybe I should quit going to college or business school and go to
Who would have
culinary
thunk?
school. And he said, don't be stupid. He said, come every day willing to learn something new and have a list of things that you want to learn. And every day we'll get our prep done. And if we have
Mm-hmm.
time, we'll do something new. And
Okay.
he said, we'll do it together. If he didn't know it, we would learn together. Or if he did know, he would teach me.
Mm-hmm.
And that
That's a
was
win-win.
that was life saving,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely life saving. It gave me a lot of direction, gave me just the ability to wake up and have something to be really determined to do every day, aside from just the normal dragging grind of going to
Mm-hmm.
college when you don't really want to be going to college.
Right.
And so that was really when I started taking everything seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And, cut to about 5 years later, give or take, I started a private cooking business where I now cook in people's homes, which is fairly popular around here because we have
Mm-hmm.
limited restaurants. The reservations book up very quickly. And the summer and holiday seasons, people don't want to leave their beautiful home. They want to eat a nice meal in their home with their family and
Mm-hmm.
get to, be on their
Mm-hmm.
own pace and their own schedule. And so that's what I accomplish.
Very nice. So, um, and then real quickly, you and your wife, who I call her Goldilocks, because
Goldilocks and our three bears.
yes, yes, you do. That's right, because her hair is, so pretty and curly, and I love it. And what are you and your wife doing? Your side adventure. What are you doing now?
So we just started renting our house. We lived in a 600 square foot tiny house
Mm-hmm.
for about 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we really outgrew it within the first year.
Yep.
But we stuck it out, and we were able to, even move a little bit closer to Calamity Girl here.
To me.
And so now what we do is we rent out our little tiny house
Mm-hmm.
to people who are traveling through the area and don't have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars a night to spend
That's
on a
right.
hotel in Jackson, or the surrounding areas of Yellowstone National Park that are
Mm-hmm.
just so expensive. So,
Exactly, because it's super duper expensive up here, you guys.
yes,
Way expensive. And
yes,
even the restaurants are just they're outrageous. So that's why a lot of people just cook at home around here.
that's
And
right. And last
yep.
year I read a consumer report that said that one of the only more expensive places to live in the United States is Hawaii.
No kidding. More than
Seriously.
Jackson.
Yes, fuel prices, food
Here, you know
prices.
what? If this goes up, you'll have a better. There
Oh,
we
see,
go.
I'm
There's
trying
the
to figure
trick.
it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so we live in a very expensive place as far as food prices, gas prices, all of those things that are just massively inflated. So
Mm-hmm.
having an option for just normal people who want to come visit the area and come rent a nice house, kind of out in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
we've had a lot of success with, and we've met some fun people along the way. So it's our new adventure, and we're really liking it. Yeah.
Now, let me ask, if people wanted to rent that, would they be able to, for an additional charge, maybe get the oh, hold on, here's where my MS comes in. Right? Hold on. The
It's right there.
accommodation
Uh-huh.
of a private chef.
Whoa, my ears are terrible with these things. But yes, to answer your question, yes. So
Okay.
if you were to book our house for a rental and then
Mm-hmm.
send us a message and say we're interested in having an experience with a dinner or a breakfast or a lunch or whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
really,
Mm-hmm.
that is something we absolutely do
Mm-hmm.
offer at our rental house. And eventually, we'd love to have it as just a food adventure getaway for people who want to come in the mountains and have a healing, delicious experience where they get to be out of the rat race of the city, in the
Mm-hmm.
woods, in the mountains, and then also be eating really delicious and healthy food the
Mm-hmm.
entire time that is, farm to table based,
Yeah.
based upon the kind of flavors that you would expect to get in
Mm-hmm.
Wyoming. And yeah, that's kind of a long term goal. But as of right now, if you want to come out and stay and eat wonderfully, that is something we do.
Yeah. And how do they get a hold of you?
So you can research on Airbnb. It
Mm-hmm.
is our listing is on Airbnb, VRBO, and HipCamp. But also, if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to just get a hold of me in general to talk about what some options might be, my Instagram is Cooking in the Dark.
Cooking in the dark.
Pretty simple there, and you can leave me a message on Cooking in the Dark Instagram, and I can get back to you about what kind of fun we can have.
Wow. So, you guys, if that sounds kind of neat to you, give a thumbs up in the chat. Thumbs up in the chat because I think it sounds pretty neat. And you know what? It might be. You might even be able to make Calamity Girl.
That's the ultimate bonus, really. I mean, you can eat, but you get to meet.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Okay, so now we're getting thumbs up. They're gonna go. Always something. Stone Enchantress, Nikki Jeffers, and you'll start seeing it fly up. And so the
Wow,
chat
thanks
is
everyone for being here.
yes, this is really exciting. And True is she'll post your Instagram in there every
Thank you,
now and then.
True.
Yes. Oh look, and Lori Baird is waving a bat wing. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I love it. Okay, well I'm going to give it over to Brad, and then I can I interject questions.
Yes, please
Okay.
do.
Or sometimes can I if I think of a song, can I sing?
Yes,
Okay.
song interruptions and question interruptions are welcome.
Ah, yay!
So basically, we're just going to kind of get the ground rules set here. Start talking about some of our ingredients and go into some of the methodology in sourdough.
Hmm.
Now, I want to preface all of what I'm going to say here by letting you know that sourdough can be seen as one of these things that is like it can be so daunting. It almost seems like a religious endeavor to people how they describe it and how it has to be so follow the rules, and if you do one thing wrong, then the whole thing's going to be ruined. I don't follow that. I am the kind of chef who doesn't like recipes. I like to go freehand. I don't measure things. I like to just say, that looks right or that looks wrong.
Hello, husband.
And so, one thing that we're going to start with is just the simple base that you're going to begin with in all sourdough making. And that is just starting with your flour and water hydration. So what I did in just a regular stand mixer, you can even just do this with your hands if you don't have any fancy equipment, is you're just mixing a percentage of flour with a percentage of water. Like I said, I don't measure anything. So what I do is maybe I'll just take a mason jar and I'll fill it full of flour
Mm-hmm.
and I'll put that in my mixer. And then maybe I'll fill that
What kind of
mason.
flour?
So what I
Eh,
tend to use for my sourdough, I think it is kind of a universal good one that you can find at most grocery stores, is
mhm.
the organic King Arthur bread flour.
So that's 00 flour.
This is not double zero.
Okay.
This is more of like an all-purpose. I
Okay.
would say that it's a little more coarse than all-purpose,
Okay.
but it's like your M16 standard issue, gonna do pretty good for bread making
Hmm.
kind of flour, and you can find it basically anywhere.
What kind of flour do you use? Do you
Uh,
like?
so I like to do a mixture of the King Arthur bread flour as well as we get from an Amish farm in Pennsylvania. They grow a whole wheat einkorn flour, and I will occasionally mix that in increments or percentages to the flour or to the dough itself to just give a little bit more flavor and a little more texture.
Okay.
That's kind of down the line as you start playing with your base dough and your base recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is just, I want to say this is about 95% just King Arthur bread flour in
Okay.
this particular dough.
Okay.
And that's just to give us like something that's easy to work with. And I'm not showing you guys, oh, I'm going to mix in this percentage now and stuff like that. That's kind of as you get that experience of learning your sourdough and learning your method, you're going to start to play with that a little more.
Okay.
So this, I would say, is about a 70% hydration dough. So, like I said, you fill up your mason jar with flour, and to your mixing bowl, you're going to start mixing in 70% of that mason jar with water. So, if I filled it all the way up with flour, I'm only going to fill it about 70% with water and then just start mixing that together. Now, what I want to show the camera here is this dough now has elasticity. It has a stretch to it. And you
Mm-hmm.
can start to see that it gets that what you call window pane effect, where you can kind of see through it before it tears. That's really what you're looking for because that means that your flour is fully hydrated. It's gotten all that water absorbed into it. It's gotten the gluten activated, gluten and water mixed together, they'll bond into those sticky chains, and
You can put that down if that's bothering
that's
you.
what's going to make good bread. So you definitely want to go through this process where you are mixing in your flour and your water, and then let this sit for at least a half an hour, covered with plastic or a tea cloth that's been dampened. But you want this covered and to just sit so that it can hydrate and hang out and everybody is all in the party working together, right?
That's right. Let's get this party started.
Get
That's
the
what they're
party
doing
started.
in there. They're dancing.
So this party has already been started. What I did this morning when I woke up is I mixed my flour and my water together and we let it sit up until now. So it probably sat for a good 6 hours,
Oh,
which is
wow.
fine.
Okay.
You can
Yeah,
always,
did you cover it or did you just leave it?
yes, this was covered with plastic wrap for that 6 hours.
Okay. Okay.
And what I've done in the past is if you have a day on the weekend, the next day, where you want to do some bread making, on Friday night, you can start mixing together your flour and your water, cover it, let it sit. You can let it sit in the fridge, you can let it sit at room temperature. It's kind of up to you and kind of up to you to see what the results come out to be. If it's different in the fridge or if it's different sitting out at room temperature, that's up to your own sort of trial and error. Because this is, as I was telling Calamity Girl, this is the funnest best science experiment you can do because you get to eat and taste your results and know, all right, this was a good science experiment, or maybe this wasn't as good of a science experiment, but at least it's still delicious, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna
Baking is
rinse my.
yeah, go ahead. Baking is a science experiment, isn't it?
It always is, especially when you're baking at higher altitudes where we have such dry air and our barometric pressure changes all the time, which
Hmm.
people are like, what the heck is he talking about? But it affects how quickly the water cooks out of the bread.
Whoops.
So when the water is
I'm
cooking
gonna grab a jar
out
too.
of
It's
the
cold.
bread quickly, which it does at altitude, which just adds another layer of variable, really. I mean, it doesn't make or break anything. It just changes how you're going to be.
Oh, they have no sound. Okay. Give us a thumbs up if you have sound. I think it was because mm, yeah. Okay, it should be fine now.
Good.
Yep, we're
Okay.
back. We're back.
Okay. So basically, I was just kind of talking about the hydration and different variables depending on what level of sea level you live. We live at super high altitude, so it kind of changes some things. Anyways, what we have here is our
I can
auto
hold that for
least
you.
dough. I can.
Okay.
Auto least dough is just flour and water mixed together and let sit for half an hour or longer so that it is a party now. Everyone's in the party, everyone's ready to go. And we have two of them because we have two of us. I
Hey, let
also,
me give a shout out real quick. Dad's Gone Live. Thank you for the donation.
thank
Thank you for
you.
joining us,
Thanks, Dad's Gone
Jacob.
Live.
Appreciate it.
So now that I've showed you our base ingredient, which is our auto least dough, flour and water mixed together, I'm going to show you our next most important ingredient, which is our sourdough starter. So I'm going to show this as close as I can to the camera. You see all those little bubbles in there. So those bubbles are fun little gases that those yeast bacteria have given off and fermented and soured our dough, which is what makes our bread rise. So this, I would think, I would tend to argue, is better for you than using just rapid Fleischmann's bread yeast. The reason for that is because this is not going to continue to ferment once it hits your belly. Some of that Fleischmann's
Oh,
yeast, when you eat super yeasty bread like that, sometimes you feel, ooh, I feel a little, a little gassy, a little bloated. I think that's because that ingredient is so robust, that Fleischmann's yeast, it's just continuing to work as it's been cooked into bread. So this is much more gentle on your
know
system.
that.
And sourdough bread has been a part of our human tradition basically for thousands of years, if not tens of thousands of years. And people survived off of bread for months at a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our sourdough starter is kind of the golden ticket to making sourdough bread. And what I
Kind of
do,
like Willy Wonka with the golden ticket.
I've got a golden ticket. Okay. What what I have here to show you is my starter. And basically it started at about half of this mass this morning. But I fed it with a little bit of flour and a little bit of water and let it sit at room temperature and it doubled in size. And what I really like to emphasize is that if you are getting your starter ready, don't let it sit out for 2, 3 days before you're ready to use it. You want to get your starter ready when you're ready to use it. And the
Okay.
reason why that's important is because you don't want the yeast, little fermented sourdough yeast particles in there to eat through all their food before it hits your dough. Because
Mm-hmm.
when it does that, it's a higher pH. So your bread's going to taste more sour, but it's not going to want to rise beautifully in the oven. That's how you're getting those flat as a
Mm.
pancake sourdoughs where you put it in your cooking pot. We're going to be using Dutch ovens here. Dutch ovens are kind of the go-to as far as cooking sourdough.
Hey, I have one right there, ready to roll.
She has a prettier one.
Yours is just more used and broken in.
It
That's
sure
what I have
is.
to say. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
what was I saying here? Oh, so when you're using older sourdough starter, it's higher in pH. Your bread is going to rise less because it's less active, but you're going to get really sour bread, really flavorful bread, which some people like. So that's up to you guys at home to decide how much or little you like that sour flavor. But what I like to do is to have nice, fresh, ready to go sourdough that's been fed most recently and it's as active as it's going to be. Because I think at about that 5, 6 hour mark, it starts to fall off in how active it is because it's eaten all of the
Oh,
food that's in there that you've given it.
so so people will share sourdough starters. And what tell me about that? What do you think about that? Because
So
those will be sitting for a long time.
this is Calamity Girl new sourdough starter that I'm
I get a
gifting
new one.
her. Mine was given to me as a gift too from uh, my wife's aunt's grandmother.
This is that?
So this is that it's like over 100 years old, and what that means is this hasn't been sitting for 100 years, but it's been using that same mother batch to keep on living for over 100 years. And so what I mean by that is, say you're getting ready to use your starter, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to start making some bread tomorrow.
Okay.
What you do is you take a scoop of this. I keep this in the fridge, by the way. It'll keep for easily a week in the fridge without having to feed it.
Okay. How
So,
much do you feed it?
so it kind of depends on how
What
much
you use it?
how much you use it and how much you want to use off of it.
Okay.
So it's amazing that to create a whole new batch of sourdough starter, you could start with just a tablespoon. You could
Okay.
just start with a tablespoon of that starter and mix in your flour and your water.
Mm-hmm.
Flour, water from the tap is fine. I like to use a little bit warmer water, not hot, but warm because bacteria like the warmth and they like to, get the party going when it's nice
Mm-hmm.
and warm inside.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll mix in
Is it a party or a rave?
uh, with sourdough, I'd say it's a rave because it gets pretty alcoholic in there, you know? If
Mm-hmm.
you if you let your sourdough starter sit out at room temperature, say you just forget about it. Sits out at room temperature for 3 days, take the cap off, you're whoa, that smells like a brewery in there.
Mm-hmm.
Most people might think, throw that out. You don't have to throw it out. It's still good to use for other things. Like you can add it to pancakes or waffle batter or stuff like that. Or even you can just pour your sourdough starter into a greased pan and make a flatbread with it.
Mm-hmm.
Salt and pepper, maybe some chives or herbs over the top, flip it in the pan with some olive oil. It's a great little snack. And that's if you just let your sourdough starter get too old, you can still use it. You don't need to throw it away. It's
Okay.
got lots of good flavor in there still.
I don't believe in throwing anything away if I don't have to.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So any questions from the chat?
Let's
Anybody?
see. They're about 15 seconds behind, so it seems like an eternity. But
Of
does
course.
anybody have any questions so far for Brad? And then if you do, highlight my name, Calamity Girl, and then write your question down. That would be great. And so they should be coming in any second. Um, And now it will be an ancient calamity secret. That's right, Zian. How are you?
That's
Good to
right.
see you. Hold on.
So if we don't have any major questions, we can kind of start moving on with our
Okay.
ingredients list here.
Okay.
The awesome part about sourdough is it's so simple. There are
Mm-hmm.
not very many ingredients other than flour, water, and
Question.
salt.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She's telling people how to do the questions. Okay. I'll let you know if you have a question. Yes.
So
Um, what town is your rental in?
the town that our rental is in is called Bondurant, Wyoming. So if you're looking in between the Pinedale and Jackson, Wyoming areas, that's where you will find
Okay. Can I interject with
it. Of course.
questions as you go? Okay. We'll just do it like that. So
Perfect.
here we go.
So our next ingredient here
Hi, Donna.
is salt. And I like to use, this is my favorite brand of salt to use, and it's because it has such good minerals in it.
Now let me ask you a question about that because I always talk about Redmond salt.
Redmond salt, which is also great salt. I tend to not use as much pink salts because it has iron in it.
Mm-hmm.
And iron can be very good for you, but also you can just want to watch those levels of it. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think that Redmond salt is excellent salt. But one thing that I do really like about this Celtic salt
Mm-hmm.
is has a little bit larger particle size than the
Oh
Redmond
yeah.
salt does.
Okay. Very
It's
nice.
not like your kosher diamond crystal salt, which we see a lot in restaurants, which is kind of more of a flakier salt. Let's see if I can put this in the chat. This is
I'm gonna
kind
get
of a
more.
medium-sized particle. It's not super fine, but it's not super coarse. And I just like it because of the minerals, because of the flavor, and because of um, that particle size and just kind of how it feels when you sprinkle over stuff. Personal preference, but
Perfect.
good quality salt. Redmond salt, Celtic salt, whatever you like to get, Himalayan salt, just get good quality sea salt
Mm-hmm.
because in my opinion, the Morton's sea salt, if you ever drove past the Morton's plant in Chicago with the highway spray coming over onto the other side of the guardrail, the plant's right there. So I don't think that Morton's salt is my preferred brand. I'll just say that.
Mm-hmm. We talk about salt here a lot. Yeah,
It's
we
important
do.
because
And what is
salt
your
is everything.
opinion on iodized salt?
Everybody needs iodine in their diet, depending on how you're getting it. I think that iodized salt is obviously really processed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there there tends to be very little mineral concentration to it, other than just sodium and
Mm-hmm.
chloride.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I see. I don't recommend it.
yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah,
That's
but
just
if that's
that's
all you have,
if that's
then
all you have, that's one thing. But if
yes,
you can go out and get yourself quality salt, it's worth it.
it
It
is.
really is for your health, for the flavor of your food, for the joy of cooking. I think that it really is worth
Mm-hmm.
it.
Perfect.
So yeah,
Okay.
our sourdough bread is going to consist of flour, water, salt, and sourdough starter, which is just water and flour that has the active bacteria in it. So very simple recipe.
Okay. I have let's see. Angie and Rick are asking, is there a recipe we can get a hold of?
So as I was saying, I don't really go by a recipe.
Mm-hmm.
What I am going to be describing here is kind of the mental recipe that I use with myself and
Mm-hmm.
have developed by trial and error. Um, I will say though that there are so many useful sourdough recipes online on on YouTube that will just show you the basic recipe or percentages. If you're one of those
Mm-hmm.
people who really likes to measure things, then I would say any of those videos or Recipes on Google that you might find are going to be a great place to start. But the trial and error aspect of sourdough is the most important thing because those recipes are not always going to get you the exact same result as they've had because there's
There you
so
go.
many variables.
It's a science
It's
project.
a science project,
You're
and
going back to fifth grade.
you're going back to fifth grade, and you're going to have some fun with it.
Who wants to be a fifth grader? Remember that show?
Who's smarter than a fifth
Yeah,
grader?
something like that.
Jeff Foxworthy.
Jeff Foxworthy. He was funny. Whatever
So,
happened to him?
Calamity Girl and I are now going to start mixing our
Okay.
sourdough starter into our dough, our
Okay.
auto lease dough. And that will put us in our, I would say, our most time consuming part of sourdough, which is going to be the stretching and folding.
Okay.
So,
I can move the camera down too if we need to.
so I have an old broken chopstick that I stir and work with my sourdough with just because it's a lot easier than washing spoons and butter knives and stuff like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, little tip of mine is get yourself a stick, and it's a lot easier to stir in your mason jar and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Scrape the sides down.
Hey, just a stick.
So,
So do you want me to move the camera down?
so I would say this, just to kind of give you some rough measurements, I would say this is about 2.5 to 3 cups of flour and about 2 cups of water mixed together. Now, to this, I am going to add, I would say about 3 heaping tablespoons of sourdough too. And that's the
Okay. Let
sourdough
me
starter.
let me put that down here so they can see.
Perfect.
Okay. Whoa. We almost had a second calamity. There we go. Perfect. Okay.
So,
So you said how much? About
I would say about 2 to 3 heaping tablespoons worth.
okay.
You don't need to go like half and half. A lot of people think that you need a bunch of sourdough starter to put into your dough. It's really not the case. The party will get going pretty darn quickly.
Yeah, I like a party.
Okay. So now that we have the sourdough starter in our auto-lease dough, we are going to add the salt. And the reason why we don't immediately add the salt, salt will inhibit the growth of the bacteria. So,
I didn't know that.
yeah, so the reason why we're not going to be just adding the salt right away, there's a bunch of scientific reasons to this and how the gluten is forming and how the salt is attaching to that gluten.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what it comes down to, I think, is you want to add your salt when you're getting your party started because that's when it's going to start to develop the flavor.
Okay, right before the rave.
Right before the rave, exactly.
Okay. Got that, guys?
And so I'm going to be adding roughly 2 teaspoons of salt to
Okay.
both of these doughs.
Show them in your hand, your palm, what a teaspoon would look like.
That's about 2 teaspoons, maybe a little bit more. And that's just going to go right into the dough.
Mm-hmm.
So what Calamity Girl and I are going to do now is our initial incorporation. So we're going to start to just
Okay.
fold this dough together. This should only take a couple minutes. And how you know that your bread dough is off to a good start is if it's pulling away from the bowl. You want
Mine's pulling away.
you want hydrated dough, meaning the more water you can get your dough to accept, the better result you're going to have for your bread. However, the the wetter your dough is, the harder it is to work with.
Yes.
And that's why I say it's better to start with a lower hydration dough and start working your way up.
It's like adding salt to something. You can always add more, but you can't take away.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And adding raw flour to your dough, like trying to take moisture away from your dough, is
Mm-hmm.
really hard. And that raw flour that you're adding to your dough is going to take a while to hydrate. So that's the reason why
Okay.
you want to start lower in your hydration and work your way up, because starting too wet is going to be harder to fix than starting too dry.
Okay. Okay.
So now that we've got our sourdough
You know what? I'm
mixed
learning so much.
together,
This is great. I'm so glad that you're right next door.
I'm glad you're right.
And Drew says this is fascinating to watch.
Okay, so now our dough is just, it's still kind of shaggy, but it's mixed together. It's got the salt and the sourdough starter mixed into it.
Hmm.
So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go back covered,
Okay.
and we're going to do folding, because fermentation happens so quickly at altitude. I don't know exactly scientifically why, but from my experience, at high altitude, our stuff ferments like twice as fast.
I really,
Yeah,
is that right?
I really have no idea why that is, but that definitely is the case.
Huh.
So
Should we wash our hands?
we're
We
gonna
can,
we're gonna wash our hands here.
we'll be right back. We can keep talking to them if we want, or we could talk amongst ourselves, you know. Okay. Okay. I have heard that to wash your hands, you need to sing the happy birthday
Happy
song.
birthday song.
Have you heard that?
They told us that in, I don't know, second grade or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
okay. I'm ready to roll. Are you? Okay. Oh,
Here we go.
here we go. Happy birthday to Stan Carroll. We missed his birthday on Saturday. Happy birthday to Stan Carroll. Fake foot. Happy birthday to Stan Carroll Figfoot. Cha cha cha. Happy birthday to you. Hey. Okay. Oh, right above to your left are some towels. Right above in the cabinet.
Oh,
Here we go. Perfect. We have a girl that is, a lot of times comes in our chat, and her name is Carla, and she is a restaurant health and not inspector, but she does restaurant health stuff and makes
okay.
sure that violations and stuff aren't happening in the kitchen.
Yep. I'm
Okay.
very familiar with those
I just
people.
I didn't know about that. I just Carlo told me about that one day and I thought, well, son of a gun, is that right?
So
Yeah.
now that we're gonna let this hang out for 15 minutes, we're
Okay.
gonna probably do this about 3 times, where we're
Okay.
gonna let it sit for 15 minutes, and then we're gonna stretch it and fold it, and then we're gonna let it hang out for 15 minutes. And then we
Okay.
can kind of show what it means
Does
to.
that mean that we can sit down and have some chat time?
That's right.
Okay.
But first,
Well,
what I want to show everybody
yes.
is, now that I've used almost all of my sourdough starter, look, there's probably maybe a tablespoon left in there. All you need to do is add more flour.
About how much?
I probably put about half a cup, maybe a third of a cup in there.
Okay.
And then we'll probably add to this, let's say, 2 to 3 tablespoons of water.
Okay. What do you guys think? Is this fun? What do you think? Sorry, I can't pay a lot of attention to the chat. I'm in school. Okay.
So then once we have that in there, we're just going to mix it together with our broken chopstick, get it so that it looks all stretchy and doughy again.
Okay.
And that has that bacteria in there from that leftover tablespoon. So then in 5 or 6 hours, it will look like what we started with.
Wow. That is terrific. And it comes from about 100 years ago.
It does,
How
yeah.
about that? Yes, this is great. Everybody, okay. I asked how they're doing. and they're loving it. They're loving it. And Ojai says, heck yeah, he's enjoying it. Iva says, absolutely, 100%. Oh, Phoebe, you'll want to type. Oh, okay. Yeah, Phoebe, highlight my name and then ask your question, and I can um, interject it with to Brad. But we can move our camera and we can go sit down if we want. And uh, okay, let's see. Here we go.
Grab the
And
camera
then,
here.
yeah. And then, and you know what? How about we sit right about here? And then, yeah, go ahead and have a seat. Go ahead. Because they're not here for me right now. They're here for you. Okay. So, um, as we know, this is Brad. And Brad, they're going to have some questions for you because we always have chat time. Because we know that my age demographics in here, Gracie, get down, are 40, about 45 to 64.
Okay.
And most of us have some kind of health issue or an ailment or something like that.
Yeah.
So what is your, um, um, oh, just one moment. She's been trying to ask a question.
Yeah.
This is Phoebe. And she says, Brad, my mom used to make bread out of the mash after making the spirits. Is this the same thing? She's learning and loving it.
So this is similar
Can you go?
to
Okay.
making bread out of like a sour mash that you would get from whiskey. Now, the main difference from that is in sour mash, what you're typically using is either barley, corn, or some other kind of starchy, you know, substance. A lot of people used wheat, so it can be very similar, but the reason why it's a little bit different is just how
Just one second. They might not be able to hear
uh,
because I have these separated. This was my first mistake.
I got it.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, guys. Hootie hoo, we're back. Hootie hoo, cat. Okay, another question. Were you able to finish?
So
Oh,
basically,
no.
it's the same concept. It's you're growing that bacteria, that yeast bacteria, but using flour to do that rather than like a sour mash from wheat or barley or corn is just going to be the consistency that your bread is going to come out with. If you use sour mash, you might get a little bit more coarse, spots in your bread, but that's fun too. I mean, that I would love to go make bread out of sour mash from making liquor. I think that would be a lot of fun because I've never tried that before. So,
Well, let's do it sometime.
yeah, we'll have to try.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It would be.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. And so, let me see. Um, yeah, they'll take a minute for them to come up. Nikki Jeffers was asking me how long I've known you, and I told her about 5 years.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yep,
Hmm.
and it's been nothing but a pure joy. I
Yeah,
have to say, nothing but pure joy.
when you live where we live, every single day is an adventure. And
Hmm.
so when you have fantastic neighbors around you, it makes it a fun adventure rather than intimidating, terrifying one.
Yes,
Because sometimes when you get stuck in 4 feet of snow or you're sunk in mud to your axles,
it
you
happens.
kind of need to phone a friend.
Oh,
So,
and it happens.
yeah.
It happens. If you don't get stuck on your snowmobile or your something with tracks at least once a season, then you're not doing it right.
Yeah, then you're not really pushing the limits, and you should reassess. But that is, I mean, we have known Calamity Girl and husband Calamity for yeah about 5 years now, and we couldn't imagine having better people close to us in our lives, and it really pays to have a community of people who are willing to help each other out but have fun doing it too.
I agree.
It's,
Thank you.
it's not the same when a neighbor is helping you or you're helping a neighbor and they're being a sourpuss about it.
Yeah, yeah, we don't like that.
You might as well laugh, right?
That's right. Now, now, there's a question in here about what is the most unusual. May is asking, what is the most unusual meal or dish someone has requested for you to make?
Well, boy, there is a long list of that. I've cooked for clients long term before who had extremely limited diets, and I had a client that I helped cure him of his symptomatic Crohn's
Get
disease,
out of here.
and that was through a diet called the FODMAP diet. And I wouldn't recommend a lot of people just going out there and trying out a FODMAP diet to, correct their illness. It was kind of targeted towards helping Crohn's disease and stomach and intestinal inflammation,
Hmm.
avoiding any foods that could ferment in your stomach or your intestines, such as fruit. Fruit was a big one that this person could not have because fruit has sugars in it as well as fibers and starches. And in your intestinal tract, that can ferment. It can cause you to be more gassy. Brassicas. So uh, we call those broccoli, cole crops such as cabbages and let's see, Brussels sprouts,
Hmm.
cauliflower, things like
Lettuce,
that.
spinach.
Yeah, you might notice that some of those things, if you if you eat a big bowl of like raw broccoli salad, which in Minnesota we grew up with wood tick salad. I love it. But sometimes because of how fibrous it is and it has those remaining sugars in it, it can make you feel a little more gassy. So I would say one of the craziest things that I did was cooking long term that FODMAP diet and nourishing someone who was very active. He was a mountain climber, a skier, doing all these things
Mm.
every day. So he needed lots and lots of calories to sustain that. However, there was a small amount of foods that he could eat to sustain himself. So getting creative within those parameters
Hmm.
is definitely some of the crazier stuff I've had to do. But I've also done a lot of cooking out in the backcountry. So going miles and miles and miles into the mountains and then making gourmet food happen. I've done handmade
Wow.
pasta at 9,500 feet, up above where the trees grow, kind of on this high mountain lake, and I'm cooking over
Handmade pasta.
handmade pasta. Yep,
You outfitted back there.
that's
Oh
right.
my gosh.
So
Wow.
that's definitely a shining jewel as well. But over the years, I some of the funnest and craziest cooking I've done has been, outdoors, out in the elements where you can't just drive to the store. You
Yeah.
can't just go into the pantry and get what you need. You have to, well, you have what you have and you have to make do with it, which is tons of fun
Yeah.
because that's what our ancestors did. That's what even a couple generations before us did during the Great Depression. Some of those recipes they came up with were incredible, where they were
Yeah.
making loaves of bread out of potatoes and peanut butter. And I'm not joking about that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I like
I
the
love it.
minimalist having to make do with what you've got sometimes.
I agree with that. The other day I had a sweet tooth because we were going to make oatmeal cookies.
Hmm.
I had no brown sugar. Let's make it. I had molasses and I had used sugar, and so that's what we did. We made our own brown sugar,
Absolutely.
and then we made the oatmeal cookies. And husband even said, "Oh my God, these are amazing."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that that's when you find some of your most favorite recipes, is when you have to improvise like that.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
say, "Oh, well, next time I make cookies, I'm going to make my own brown sugar because it was that much better." And that
There you go.
becomes part of your secret recipe, or just your way that makes it more special, and people go,
Mhm.
"Wow, what'd you do to these cookies?"
And it's not processed.
Exactly.
Nikki Jeffers has a question. It was at me, but I'm going to pose it to you.
Okay.
She says, "Has Brad ever ate any of your cooking?"
Oh, absolutely. Yes. We've done a couple neighbor potluck,
Hmm.
everybody brings something and let's all eat and cook together. And then I think, gosh, this was probably a couple years ago, but people were sending you cooking challenges to do, and someone sent you the idea of making a street taco pizza.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
something that, and she whipped it up probably in the matter of an hour, all said and done, and it was delicious. Calamity Girl is a talented, talented lady.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I have lots to learn, lots to learn. Now, let me go back because let me see who asked this question. Uh, just one second. Okay. Brad, is your wife a chef as well?
So Jolie is not a chef, but she has, over the last 6 or 7 years of just helping me
He wants
run
water.
my business and do what I do. Um, she has picked up so much in the world of cooking, and her specialty, I would say, she has always studied naturopathic medicine and sports science and stuff like that, so she knew a lot about the nutrition side of things. But cooking wasn't her passion. But what we have really built together is this relationship around food and cooking, and so we oftentimes are working together, and she's helping me cook, and she knows me so well now and has seen me cook so many times that she can tell me, "Hey, are you supposed to be doing that like that? Did you forget something?" And so she's like the best sous chef in the world these days, I would say.
Okay, Nikki is asking, he might have already touched on this, but what's the favorite food that I've made that you've tasted?
Oh man. Well, Andy always makes an incredible meatball, but Andy made these snickerdoodle cookies that I
Those are
had
so
the
good.
other day,
Mhm.
and gosh, that was weeks ago, but
Mhm.
they were the best snickerdoodles I had ever had. And this is
Hey,
saying something, because I worked in a cookie bakery in college that was called Hot Box Cookies, where we baked and delivered cookies all around town. And I thought they had the best cookies in the world, but Andy
thank you.
definitely surpassed them with her snickerdoodle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I appreciate that because you know what? We made it together with everybody online here.
So you
Yeah.
guys know the excellent recipe as well.
Yes. And then let me see. I've missed a couple here. Just one second. So what is your favorite hobby?
Oh boy. My favorite thing to do that I do all the time is just go outside with our dogs and walk around the beautiful nature that we have here in Wyoming.
The
Um,
wildflowers.
oh, the flowers this year have been magical, and
Mm-hmm.
it never gets old. It really
Mm-mm.
never gets old to just be outside with my best friends, my
Oh,
my dogs and my wife,
mm-hmm.
and enjoy the sights, the sounds, and the smells.
Mm-hmm.
But secondary to that, if I wasn't a chef, I would have tried to be a race car driver, because I have always loved racing,
Oh, really?
and I've gone to the Indy 500 since I was 9 years old with my grandfather. It was a tradition he started in the late 60s or early 70s, and we still do it to this day. I mean,
No
every year,
kidding.
our whole family from that side, we meet up in Indianapolis and we go to the race all together. And if you've never experienced a car race like that, which is Indy car racing is the highest level in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You know, NASCAR and IndyCar are kind of the highest levels. Um, I encourage you to get out and try it because every new person I've ever brought to a race has walked away from it saying, "Oh yeah, I'd go to
Absolutely.
another one. That was awesome." You know?
I've been to a couple before, and it was so much fun. And when those engines just come passing by where you're at
Oh
the
yeah.
oh my gosh, you could just feel it inside.
Yep.
It just yeah, and it's a rush.
Yep, it's so how music is a vibration, I think, you know, race cars passing at speed, it's like a musical vibration and it's got its own certain magic to it. So that's one of my other favorite hobbies in the whole world.
Nikki wants to know what are your dog's names?
So we have well, since my wife is lovingly referred to as Goldilocks, we have our three bears. Our
I love
oldest
it.
is she's Badger, and she's a great American mutt who was rescued off the streets, and she is like the most interesting dog you've ever met in your life because she changes colors about once every 6 months to a year, and she is she's just a special one because she's got a very unique way of life and personality to her. Our middle
Mhm.
dog, Yogi, is best friends with all of the Calamity dogs.
Yep,
He
yep.
he
He comes
likes
over.
to come over and say hello.
Mhm.
Calamity Noodles is his sworn girlfriend in life.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we're walking past the Calamity house, he has to
Oh,
come say hi,
absolutely.
and he loves Husband and Calamity Girl. I think more than any other human other than my wife and I, because he always jumps up and gives them a
Oh,
big hug
oh, he
immediately.
does. He's a really tall dog. He's got legs as long as Brad's.
Yeah.
And when he jumps up and he just wants to give you a hug, that's it. And it's just so precious.
And he doesn't do that to
Oh,
anybody else other than Calamity
hey,
household members.
swinging.
So that's our middle oldest, and then our
Okay.
youngest is Tippy, and he's a purebred border collie that
Okay.
we also rescued, and he's kind of like my shadow. He follows me everywhere I go, and if he is not with me, he gets really mad at me that I left him, and he always has to give me a couple nips like I'm a cow next time he sees me. He's
And
just pure cow dog, and so anything that
like Gracie.
moves, yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hey, what do you Matthew D? He wants to know, do you watch endurance racing, Le Mans, or IMSA?
Yeah,
And who do you?
I do watch IMSA and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It's on my bucket list to one day go to the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France. I think that would be an incredible experience.
Wow.
But I do follow those series, and it's been a really interesting year for those. Lots of drama, lots of cheating happening, so that's always fun.
You know, I yesterday, no, was it the day before yesterday? I did an interview. Okay, I think you know that I'm addicted to the uh, scanner chasers,
Oh,
for the
yes.
police and the fire and stuff like that. Well, I interviewed this one guy named Robert from NLM Entertainment.
Okay.
It was such a great interview, but I have to tell you, okay, there is a thing going on between the scanners and the police in Bakersfield.
Oh,
No
really?
offense. Yes. And the police cannot stand them at all because they're videoing everything. And they feel like,
Oh,
I don't know, I'm speaking for them, but perhaps, perhaps they feel that, um, you know, what do you call that? Micromanagement, you know?
oh, okay.
And so then, well, he went on this call the other night, and it was so funny. And I happened to be there watching him, so
Yeah,
I felt like I was in the car with him, you know.
yeah.
And so then the police go to this one call where there's this vacant field, and there was three of them and a canine.
Oh my gosh.
And so then they go in there, and then there's all this wrestling going on. Then the dog starts barking, and then Robert's partner was like, "Oh, they got him! They got him!" And Robert says, "How do you know that?" And he says, "Because the dog's going. The dog's going." And then Robert says, "We can't confirm that. We can't confirm that right now." And so then the police come out, you know, with this guy. You know, there's a police officer on one side, and a police officer on the other,
Uh-huh.
and then they come out with this guy in this sweater and this ball cap. And then he kind of like breaks away from them and starts to go. And then Robert's like, oh, they're going to tase him. They're going to tase him. And then and it was a police officer, and he took off the hat and the sweater, and he pointed out like, I gotcha. And they were laughing so hard. It was so funny. And it was just fun to see the the personal side of him outside of his what he does.
Right.
And I think that's what people are doing with you too. They want to know personal things
Oh,
about you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, Kath was there, and she says it was
Oh
hilarious,
my gosh.
hilarious. Let me see. I've missed some questions. Uh, just one second. Hugh says he'd rather watch NHRA. He
Yeah.
doesn't have the attention span for 500 laps.
No, I understand that. I can't say I've watched an endurance race religiously to the point where I've watched every single one of the, 5 or 10 or 12 hours. They do so many of them.
Hmm.
That's serious commitment. But yeah, I have gotten a lot more into drag racing over the last 5 or 10 years of my life here, and
Is that
it's
the one? It's like when they have the and then
that's right.
the parachute behind them.
That's right.
Oh, okay, okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, have you ever had an opportunity to go and say to cook for like the pit crews or anything?
No, I have not, but if anyone out there has any connections, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Wow, wouldn't that be
That'd
something?
be a lot of fun. Yeah.
That would be like, okay, so your biggest challenge has been cooking at nine above the tree line,
Yep, I'd say that was
a
one of them.
gourmet meal.
Exactly.
Well, what is it that you love to do, cook or bake the most, and then what is it that you loathe the most?
Well, I'll tell you that I because we're in Wyoming, I believe that Wyoming has one of the best networks of ranches and providers that grow easily some of the very best beef in the entire world.
Yeah, we
Not
get
only,
ours from the Marin Six.
yes, and that's I mean, grass-fed beef, but what's unique about beef in Wyoming is that these cows are living in alpine conditions,
Hmm.
and so one that normally means that they are not only walking on flat ground, but they're walking uphill and they're walking downhill. And that develops their muscles in their front and in their back and on their back so much differently than cows sitting in feedlots in Iowa. If you're a cow out here and you get to be grazing on wildflowers and alfalfa and pure grass and
Less
drink
stress.
drink mountain runoff water, less stress, and you're out in these conditions, you could say that it sounds crazy, but I really do think it makes a huge difference. And again, it comes down to our providers, our farmers, our ranchers in Wyoming. They really, really care about the quality of life
They
of their
do.
animals and the quality of their beef.
You know, you can, this was our third cow that we bought from Wyoming Premium Beef,
Uh-huh.
the Marin 6.
Mm-hmm.
And you can taste the difference. Say, I mean, because we're out of all the good steaks now.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so, you know, now we're having to either cut from roasts
Right.
make it down. But as a matter of fact, I make, I have a little meat slicer,
Yeah.
and I've been making the uh, roast beef,
Oh,
for sandwiches and
delicious.
stuff.
Yes.
And I've just been taking a roast
Mm-hmm.
and, making it, and then I put it in the refrigerator when it's done, and then I slice it,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes out the absolute best. And we do
Oh,
that with
so good.
chicken, chicken breasts and all
So
kinds
much
of stuff.
better than getting it at the deli
Yeah.
and better for you. I mean, if there's a
Hmm.
lot of people watching on here that are looking for ways to eat healthier and improve their quality of life through their food, I
Hmm.
think it really comes down to just using real food and real ingredients.
Hmm.
Don't shy away from eating beef if you're eating good quality beef. Don't
Hmm.
shy away from having some butter if it's good quality butter. Don't
Hmm.
shy away from eating salt if it's good quality salt. I
Hmm.
think that in my experience cooking for people and helping them try to be healthier and make healthier decisions or just feel better, it really
Hmm.
comes down to just using real ingredients and fresh ingredients. And that doesn't always mean using what's most expensive. It
Hmm.
just means maybe it takes you a little more time to find a local farm that's selling food,
Hmm.
or find your local farmers market and going getting fruits and vegetables from there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Stuff in the supermarket, it's very, very convenient, but there's a reason why it's able to be transported from Mexico or California or wherever it comes from and stay good for weeks at a time. And it's because a lot of the times it's been grown that way and it's been treated that way so that it can
Hmm.
last and last and last. And that's not always it's not always the best thing for your health.
Hmm.
A package of Cheetos can sit on the shelf for probably 10 years and taste the exact same when you open it up.
Oh
But
yeah.
it doesn't mean that your body is getting nourishment from that,
Hmm.
because it's not made out of a lot of real food. Real food
Hmm.
spoils. Real food,
It
you have
does.
to
You
use
have
it
to
when
use
it's
it.
fresh. And
Hmm.
convenience is one of those things that you have to weigh in your life.
Hmm.
How convenient do you want it versus um, how real do you want it?
Right, right. Hey, I have a couple questions here. Uh, I'll take this one from Kath and then I'll ask Nikki's. How do you feel about coffee?
So I've kind of come full circle on coffee, where a few years ago I went totally off of coffee and I tried numerous different coffee supplements where it's healthy
No.
elixirs that you mix with hot water that's supposed to taste like coffee, and it has vitamins and adaptogens and stuff like that in it. And that's fine if that's something that you like. But I have found that I kind of went into the rabbit hole on researching coffee. And if you want to do the same, there's an amazing, amazing YouTube channel out there um, on coffee. And I would have to remember the name of the creator. But basically, going into the science of coffee, it, as long as you're following that everything in moderation sort of mentality,
Hmm.
if you're the kind of person who survives off of it during the day, where you're feeling sluggish at 9 a.m. and you have your coffee, and then
Yeah,
you're feeling
yeah.
sluggish again at 3 p.m. and you have another
Hmm.
coffee, and then well, maybe you might have some with a slice of pie at dinner. And
Mhm.
if you're sustaining yourself throughout the day with those bumps of caffeine, maybe it's not the most healthy thing to have in your life if you have that kind of a relationship with it.
That's me, I can't have any caffeine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you're if you're the kind of person though who can get into the ritual of it, where maybe 3 days a week you can make yourself, get your nice coffee and your coffee grinder, and you
Mhm.
start to go through the ritual of, oh, I'm going to grind my coffee and smell it. Oh, that's such good quality coffee, I can't wait for this. And you pour it into your coffee maker and you smell it brewing, and you get yourself excited just for the experience of the flavor and the little caffeine bump and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but you're not sustaining yourself every day of every week with it.
Yeah.
I think that is that's really good, and coffee has a lot of things in it that can be really good for you. But again, seek out the best quality you can, the freshest roasted whole bean coffee you can. Grind it yourself if you have the ability to, and yeah, just give yourself the freedom to have a nice ritual that you really enjoy, but you don't need it.
Mhm. Nikki wants to know, have you ever made Buckeyes?
I have made buckeyes, but I want to say it's only been once, maybe twice. Nikki, we'd love to know your buckeye secrets. I have one friend he grew up in Cleveland, and his mom made buckeyes all the
Mhm. Truth says here, she just is stating something to know where your food comes from.
time.
I think that's important.
Absolutely.
And do you? Kath, yeah, he talked about that earlier. Do you like Redmond salt?
Yeah, Redmond salt is absolutely in the echelon of higher quality salts, which I think everyone should seek out for themselves.
Hmm. Hmm. Now let's see. Sorry, but the steak I ate at Brad. Okay, Calamity Girl. Okay, sorry, but the steak that I ate at a top steakhouse in London tasted off. I guess they feed the cattle differently.
Yeah, I so a good example of this was I had a steak where we got married in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and it was definitely different flavor, and I asked the chef about what their beef was like, and what kind of process they went through on sourcing their beef and stuff like that. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
well, this actually is beef from the property that we're on, and they eat all of the mangoes and pineapples and
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that drop onto the ground. Cow in Wyoming is not eating mangoes and pineapples.
Right?
And so
Yeah.
naturally that flavor is going to be way, way different. And if you're someone who eats beef all the time and you're really used to the flavor of the beef that you're getting, and then you
Mm-hmm.
go somewhere else in the world and you experience uh, a different flavor, I think that is par for the course, essentially.
May is asking, do you have a favorite pastry that you make?
So I think people who have the patience for pastry are saints and very talented artists. That going back to that question, because I never really answered the food that I dislike making or I'm most afraid of making. French pastry is one of the hardest, most time-consuming art forms that exists in the world of cooking, in my opinion. That being said, I absolutely love going through that process of making a laminated dough. So the kind of dough that you would use to make croissants or danishes, stuff like that, where you are making a yeast dough and you are folding in the butter layer by layer by layer by layer, and you're getting, as many layers of thin dough and thin amount of butter, and when it bakes, it's just this beautiful, flaky, crumbly uh, thing. That is one of my favorite things to do. However, it's also one of the things that I do the least because it's so
Time
daunting.
consuming.
Yes,
How
it's
long would that
daunting.
take? And how?
Oh gosh, I would say that it would easily take you 45 minutes to get the dough ready to go.
Okay.
And then it would take you overnight of refrigerating that dough to get it to the temperature that you need it to be to start folding in your butter. And then the process of folding in the butter can take, depending on how many layers you want to achieve, can take an hour, it could take 2 hours, it could take even longer, it could take shorter if you have the proper equipment. But if you're doing it by hand, you are literally folding dough, rolling it out, putting more butter in, folding it, rolling it out, and then
Wow.
folding and rolling it. There's so many steps that go into it. And you want to have the right equipment, you want to have things at the right temperature. You just really want to be you really want to be mindful of your entire process, or else you're just not going to get the results you're looking for.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize that croissants were that difficult to make.
They are kind of a bugger, yeah.
Okay. Is fresh ground pepper? Phoebe wants to know: is fresh ground pepper better in cooking?
Yeah, I tend to not buy any pre-ground pepper. It just loses a lot of flavor. It's kind of like buying your coffee pre-ground. It just loses a decent amount of flavor once it's been ground. So if you have the ability to have a nice pepper mill and crack your own pepper,
Hmm.
totally worth it as far as flavor goes.
Okay. Let's see. Uh, Roseanne, she uses pre-ground pepper for long cooking and fresh ground for serving.
That makes sense. I could see
Okay.
that. Just
Okay.
just like trying to have more mild pepper flavor for your long-term cooking,
Hmm.
and then more of the, fresh, snappy flavor for serving. So that
Okay.
totally makes sense.
Okay.
Many ways to skin a cat.
Many ways. So do you think our dough is ready?
Absolutely. I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna go call Joe Lee back, and
Okay.
then we're gonna fold our dough and get ready to go here for our next round.
Okay. He's going to call his wife back, and I am going to use the potty, and then we will have round two. So let's take a little break if that's okay. One moment. Alrighty, I'm back here. And so what do you guys think so far? Let me see. Let me grab the chat here, and uh let me see how you got. What do you guys think so far? Do you like Brad? Would you like to have him come back again maybe next week? What do you guys think? Okay, uh May, Roseanne, Very Chef Brad is a great guy. He is true, isn't he? Yes. Okay, the first time in 2 weeks I've been able to see the foothills. Oh, really? Oh, Hugh. Oh, I'm so sorry because we're not having problems with the smoke. Yeah. Okay, Roseanne's giving a thumbs up. She says sure, she's liking it. Uh, let's see. You'd like him to come back? Yes, he would. He said he would, and then we'll have a chance to ask him if he will. But why don't you guys think of some questions because we might have to let this raise. I don't know what he'll show us, but and then think of some questions and then make sure. Oh, we'll make sure to ask. Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
We're back. We're
So,
back like a bad rash. I'm sorry. Okay.
can everybody hear us? Did I bring the
Yes,
things
I
back?
brought it back.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to go into our stretching and folding. Okay, excuse me, stretching and folding process here, which I think the best thing to do is to wet your hand a little bit before you get started, and that way the dough doesn't stick to your hand
Let
as
me get a
much.
little water for us.
So we can just have a little bowl of water. And really what you're doing with this is nothing special. It's exactly what I just said, which is you're just stretching it and folding it back on itself. And you're just kind of pulling it away from the side of the bowl as you're doing that and folding it in on top of itself. What that's doing is that's just helping that gluten continue to activate in these long, stretchy chains because the more stretching and folding we do, the more stretchy our dough is going to be, which gives you that bread result at the end, which is nice and chewy and fluffy.
Chewy and fluffy.
And so we're going to just
Oh,
dip our fingers.
let me move the camera down. So.
Okay. Dip our fingers in water just a little bit.
Okay.
And that way we can start stretching and folding, and you
Oh,
can see
much
the dough is
easier.
not going to
Yes.
stick as bad.
Yeah. Oh, this is perfect. Okay. So, Brad, how long have you been married? How long have you and Jolie been married?
So we got married in 2000, beginning of 2021, and we eloped in Mexico, which was excellent.
I loved it when you guys did that.
It's definitely the way to go, in my opinion. After I've catered so many weddings in my career, I did not want to have the big family wedding. I catered my own sister's wedding, my older sister's wedding when she got married, and that was the big family soiree. And I said, "All right, you did it, so I don't have to."
Oh, nice, nice. So now, do you and Jolie ever have, since you're from Minnesota, and Minnesota's part of my heart because I used to be based there.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so, but Minnesota or Wyoming?
Oh, that's an easy answer for me. Wyoming takes the cake.
Why?
So, especially where I grew up in Minnesota, when I grew up there, I grew up in a town called Stillwater.
Oh, I know where Stillwater is.
And Stillwater was much more of a touristy town in the summertime and then more of like a small town in the wintertime. And it had a small town feel when I grew up there, but then now with the suburban sprawl of Minneapolis and St. Paul, it is much more just like a big suburb. And I prefer to be out in the middle of nowhere versus being out in the suburbs, and that's just kind of my personal preference. But I don't enjoy being in a big city or being in the rat race. I really, really do enjoy getting out in nature as much as possible and enjoying the sights, sounds, and smells that we have here in Wyoming.
Absolutely.
Although I will say that Minnesota was an excellent place to grow up. It's a fun place to visit if you want to go to the northern boundary waters. It's some of the best fishing in the country if you enjoy lake fishing. eating walleye fresh from the lake is something very special that you don't get in many other places other than the Midwest or Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan area. And walleye is still easily one of my absolute favorite fishes to eat.
Did you know that my eyes went wall-eyed? Went.
Really?
Yes, they did. I've even showed them the video. You know what? I'll pull up the video. I'll show you. What happened was my optic nerves
Uh-huh.
nerves were being affected by the MS.
The brain, yeah.
Yes. And so let me show you what it did to my eyes. And what it did is called bilateral walleye, INO. It's a big long word.
Wow.
Yes. And oops. Wait, what is this on my screen? I can't get rid of that. Holy Moses. How about that? Yeah, get rid of
There we
it.
go.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Okay. Bilateral. Okay.
Mhm.
And then my picture will come up here. Let me go to my other YouTube thing because you got to see this. Come on. Turn and okay, hold on just a second. Okay, I'm finding it. I'm gonna find it. Um,
I'm just gonna rinse my
yeah, go
hands
right
real
ahead.
quick.
Hold on just a second, guys, because I want them to see this. Um, okay. Oh, I can put in. Duh, I can put in me as the creator. Here we go. Okay, this is it. Uh, you okay?
Wow.
Okay. Sorry.
Wow.
I'll show you guys in a
Oh my
second.
goodness. It's like your eyes are moving independently of each other.
They were. They were. It was
That's
crazy.
incredible.
Yes. Yeah. So that was me comparing myself to the walleye fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it got its name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So.
What we did here is our first stretch and fold, and you can do 3 or 4 rounds of this depending
Okay.
on, just how your dough is fermenting, because you do not want your dough to over ferment. That's again how you're going to get your flat as pancake bread versus your bread that rises and splits open, makes that beautiful sourdough crust. Um,
Beautiful. Yes.
so really what we're going to keep doing here is just every 15 minutes here, we're going to do another stretch and fold
Mm-hmm.
before we put it in our baskets, which is just, it has this kind of cheesecloth that goes around the outside of this wooden basket. And the bread will sit in there for its bulk rise or its bulk fermentation. And really what that does is as the gluten holds together, the sourdough bacteria in there will be eating all of the food that it can get, and it'll be creating those air bubbles, but the gluten is going to hold those air bubbles in the bread. And so that's when you bake your bread and you get this nice light airy bread with the
Mm-hmm.
big holes in it. And the
Mm-hmm.
holes are sometimes referred to as the crumb. So when people say, "Oh, this bread has an excellent crumb," what they're really just saying is it has really nice big holes in it.
No, it's Swiss cheese.
It's Swiss cheese-esque bread.
Mm-hmm.
And these, you can buy them on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. I don't know, 15 bucks for a set of two or whatever it is.
Can you
But
get a round one? And
You can
do
get
you
a
know,
round one, you can get rectangular. I think these came together for, I want to say $15 on Amazon.
do they come with
And
the?
they come with their fabric as well.
Okay.
Um, these are not essential. I'm not going to stand here and say you need to go out and buy one of these if you want to make sourdough bread.
Hmm.
Not essential. But they do help because they help your dough kind of form into a loaf shape, and it gives you a little bit more control because you can put flour all over this fabric of being able to put, flip this over, get your dough out, and it's not going to stick to anything, and you can just go right in the oven with it.
Hmm.
So you don't bake in these or anything, you're just letting your dough rise in it.
Okay. Okay. And so, since we have a little bit of time, um, would you like to? Um, I'm going to make a fettuccine alfredo for dinner tonight.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, yes. Would you like to, um,
Assist in the process.
or would you like me to assist you?
That's right. I'm
Okay,
in.
I have all the ingredients.
Okay.
So, and so let me make sure that I've got the, I have, where did it go? Oh my gosh, you threw it in the freezer. No, Tom. Okay, one second. Okay, it's cream. We talk about cream
Yeah.
for just a moment. I can close it.
Okay.
Okay. One moment. Talk amongst yourselves. The topic is sourdough starter. Okay. Now I have to let it. Yeah. Yeah. So I can get some water, maybe. Okay. Now, when we'll go over there and maybe talk about a little bit about.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you know about cream?
Well, cream is separated from your milk.
Mm-hmm.
It is the fatty, delicious milk fat that comes off of your milk. So if you have skim milk, that means all the cream has been skimmed off of your milk. If you have 2% milk, that means 2% of that milk fat cream has been left into the milk. And we have homogenized milk these days. So that means that they have done a process to mix the milk and the cream so that that 2% stays in there. And whole milk tends to mean that you have whole fat still left in your milk, and it's all been homogenized and mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, if you are milking a cow, you let's say you get half a gallon of milk, it will tend to be that the percentage of that half a gallon that is cream will be probably around 7 to 10%. And maybe, it kind of depends on the breed of your cow and what you're feeding them and all of that. But whole fat milk tends to be about 7 to 10% cream.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit less in grocery stores these days.
Okay. So when I make a cream sauce, start out with a cream sauce,
Yep.
I take cream and butter and I slowly melt them together over the stove.
Yes.
And can you do the same with whole milk and butter, and will it come out the same?
You can, but it's going to take a lot longer to cook down whole milk into a thickened, like you can cook whole cream and butter together, and it'll probably only take a few minutes for it to thicken up. Whereas if you're doing that with whole milk, it might take an hour of
Mm-hmm.
cooking
Mm-hmm.
at a simmer, and you're really going to have to watch it stirring it so that none of that milk fat is getting burnt to the bottom of your pan. So I don't think that it's worth it to try to do it with whole milk on a regular basis versus cream, because you're essentially just cooking out all the water that's in the milk to get to the cream that's in there. So if you're wanting to use milk rather than cream in a creamy sauce and still get it thick to be able to use it, it's kind of counterintuitive because you're really just cooking out the water in the milk to get back to the cream. So I think if you're going to cook a cream sauce and you're not going to thicken it with anything and you're just going to let the natural thickness of the cream do the work, then it's best to just use cream.
There's uh, several questions in here. You want to go sit down and have a chat?
Sure, yeah, we got a few minutes before we do another
that
fold
sounds
here.
great. Come on, guys. I'm trying to carry you nicely because you can't hurt me. Okay, let's do that.
These are.
Oh, yes, yes, we need our little microphones here. Okay. Is that too much in your face?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Is this too? I'm kidding. Okay. We have I have several questions about, oh, someone said I'm sneaky. I'm sneaky about what, Cap? Okay. Um, I sure happy for the rancher. Okay. Just 1 second. Let's switch gears for just a little bit, guys. Okay. Uh, okay. Roseanne would like to know, do you have a YouTube channel?
So I have a YouTube channel. I watch YouTube religiously, but I have never posted. So I am looking forward to posting this video.
Yes.
But yeah, that's an adventure that I'm still considering to do in the future, is starting to make videos about food and lifestyle and just overall, covering covering what life is like in the world of cooking in the dark.
And so I just maybe went scrolling through. Okay, True is reminding people about your Airbnb, and several of the people came in a little late, so they didn't get to hear anything about that.
Sure. Yeah. So the Airbnb is located in Bondurant, Wyoming. So if you want an experience out in the woods, kind of away from the rat race, but not so close to our tourist area here in Wyoming of Jackson and Yellowstone and Grand Teton, um, it's more cost effective than staying in those places. It's nice and secluded, so you get to really enjoy, time with your family, time out in nature.
How many does it sleep?
I would say it comfortably sleeps 4.
Okay.
And then we have had families stay there with 6 people. But I would really say that 4 is kind of your happy number.
Okay. Okay. And then tell about a little bit about the personal perks that they might be getting.
Yeah, so
they could get.
As we're talking about, I cook. My business that I currently own and run is cooking in the dark, where I cook in people's homes for them, so you don't have to drive all the way to a restaurant and wait for your reservation for half an hour and drive all the way home. We just cook for you a lovely meal in your home, and we clean up and do all the things that you don't want to have to do, and you can just enjoy yourself. And so if you were to be someone who wanted to come stay in our little rental house and wanted us to come cook you a delicious meal, that is absolutely something that we offer. So
Are you comfortable talking about a general price package type thing? Are you comfortable with that?
It really, what I tend to do is just tailor everything to what people's needs and budget are. So, say if someone wanted to come stay in our house, that is, all done on Airbnb and stuff. And then you say, for a family of four, we have a budget of $500 and we don't want to spend any more than that, but we want to have a really nice meal. I can make that work for you.
Mm-hmm.
If it works for my schedule and it works for your budget, then we can make that work. I try to be really inclusive about not, pricing myself out of being able to have really great experiences with new people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, we live in an area where there are people who have multi millions and multi billions, and those are the kind of people who, throw costs to the wind when they want to have a nice dinner party or stuff like that. So, of course, there's so much within that spectrum of pricing. Depending on what someone's budget is, what they're looking for, I can normally always accommodate everything. But if you
Mm.
tell me you want to feed 100 people and keep it below $10 a head, I'm not your guy for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
And so say if this would be absolutely ideal for somebody who also uh, a honeymoon.
Yeah, I was gonna say romantic getaway. Say, yeah, you're
Mm-hmm.
newly married, or um, you and your
Mm-hmm.
fiance just want to get away from life for a little bit and want to come enjoy nature and enjoy a nice eating experience each night, and you don't have to worry about anything shopping, prepping, cleaning up. You don't have to worry about any of that aside from sitting down and enjoying yourself. If
Mm-hmm.
that's something that sounds good to you, then I think that's one of the perfect scenarios in that case. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. True says if you can give us a link, we can get your subs up, even if you don't have videos on it yet.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. My YouTube is cooking in the dark, just like
okay,
my
hold on.
Instagram.
YouTube. I'll put this in the chat. YouTube is cooking in the dark.
And I
Okay.
believe on YouTube it has spaces in between the words, but
Scratchy. He's
it,
waiting for
on
Jordan.
Instagram it doesn't have spaces.
Okay. So I'll just put that in the chat right there. YouTube is cooking in the dark. Then True, she'll go look for it. And then I,
Perfect.
I have I have 1,200 followers, and so at least we can start
Absolutely.
getting
I
it
think
up.
I have zero, so that'll be a start for sure.
Okay, now, Roseanne says she's going to be flying out to Wyoming in the fall.
Oh, okay.
She would love to visit the Airbnb. What do you, if people can't afford to stay, do you allow, like little tours, or
Yeah.
do you tour your property? What do you do? Some people, like before we had our fire, this was
Hmm.
funny. We had our horses and chickens and everything. People would come with their out of out of town friends for a tour
Oh, awesome.
of our ranch. And so,
Yeah.
and you really increased yours.
Right. Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, if someone just wanted to come out, walk around, and experience what it looks like and feels like out here, I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
are more than welcome to. We're not going to run you.
Yeah. Or the Kath is saying that this would is a perfect place for someone to propose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Our the family that we bought the house from originally, they got married on the property, so
Yes. I went
there's a
to that
history
wedding.
with that.
I went to that wedding. As a matter of fact, I
Yeah.
did. And so, let me see. She says she's looking for it on YouTube. Um, put in his name, True. Uh, uh, Brad Ledo,
Yeah.
Ledo. Brad, common spelling.
It might be under that.
Cooking in the dark, Brad Ledo. Okay. Question. Please ask Brad, what do you think of the cheek meat of the walleye?
Oh, so yeah, fish cheeks are one of the little known awesome parts of a fish to eat. The cheek of any animal is the one of the little known or lesser known uh, awesome cuts to eat off of it. But walleye, especially because it's a white fish and because they are a deeper water white fish, well, kind of depending on where you're catching them, but they tend to hover on the bottom of the lake. The cheeks on walleye are like little fish nuggets. They're just
Hmm.
about the size of a quarter or a silver dollar, and it's just pure flavor. And
Really?
they're fatty too,
Oh,
which
okay.
is also delicious.
Mm.
And so if you say you go fishing, you catch a bunch of walleye, just gut them and cook the whole fish and make sure you get right, it's right below the eye, kind of towards the gill, and you can just usually pop it out with your finger if it's tender enough, and it is delicious.
Okay. Hold on. Is it a Colorado-based cooking show?
I don't believe
Let me
so.
let me see if I can pull it up. Hold on, guys. Okay. What is your feeling on ghee or clarified butter?
So there's a lot of science that goes into why ghee is better for better for you than butter, and it has to do with how the butter changes when it's lightly cooked. Ghee is excellent for frying if you wanted to have something fried in butter or something that tastes buttery, but without getting the burnt, because the milk solids in butter will burn if you are frying in it. And so say you want to cook a piece of fish, for example, a really nice piece of salmon, and you don't want to cook it in olive oil or seed oils because canola oils and seed oils, they're just not very good for you. I think that that's a big common misconception that natural fats like bacon grease or ghee or butter or beef tallow, people think that that isn't heart healthy. Well, I would care to argue that canola oil, expeller pressed oils tend to be not good for you because they are hyper processed. You don't know what's in vegetable oil, you don't know what's in canola oil.
Is that it?
No, but someone must have taken the name.
Yeah, they did. I can't find it either.
I'll have to go on my YouTube here and see where it's at.
Okay.
But that's funny. Someone took my name, didn't
Yeah, because a lot of people are asking for your YouTube. So when we get a chance, you'll have to.
they? Yeah, that's not me,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
someone else has the name without spaces, I guess.
Okay.
I'll have to send it to Calamity Girl once
Yes,
I
he
find it. But I
definitely would.
haven't posted a single thing.
Okay.
So really, the Instagram is going to be a lot more interesting for people to look at.
Could you post that also on your Instagram?
Yeah, sure.
And then that way we can get, when we send people over to your Instagram, they'll be able to also hook up with your YouTube,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry, continue on. I interrupted you about your
Yeah, so ghee is really great for cooking because it has a high smoke point, meaning you can get it really, really hot without it starting to break down and want to start on fire. So again, if you're searing a piece of fish and you want to get it really, really hot, want to get your pan really, really hot, but you don't want to use butter because it'll instantly burn once it hits the pan, then ghee is going to be your solution to that. And ghee also has health benefits. Again, I can't list them off the top of my head. Please do some Googling if you're interested. But,
Because a lot of people in here, they've had heart attacks
okay,
and or stents and stuff put in.
sure.
So they have to follow a heart healthy diet. Is it better for them to cook with this than with
So
regular butter?
obviously I'm not a doctor and I can't speak for what your doctor is saying and the information that they're going by, but I can speak from my experience in cooking and seeing how ingredients like this affect people. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion based upon my experience,
Mm-hmm.
it is going to be a lot more heart healthy for you to have your piece of fish cooked in ghee than it is to be cooked in canola oil or even olive oil, because olive oil is not meant to be heated. They do have high temp olive oil out there.
I didn't know that about olive oil.
Yeah, I mean, when you get it really hot,
Yes.
smell it. It
Okay.
smells different.
Yes, it does.
And that's because it's breaking down. And so when
Okay.
I talk about high smoke point, it means that that oil can get to the point of smoking without breaking down.
Okay.
So a good example of this is bacon grease.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get bacon grease wicked, wicked hot, and you can smell it, and it's not going to smell entirely different than it did when it was sitting there in your jar when you
Mm-hmm.
saved it and it came out of the fridge. And the reason for that is because natural fats hold up to being heated better than stuff that has been expelled or pressed out of seeds, nuts, vegetables, things like that, that we get all of our processed oils from. When you heat those processed oils, they start to break down, they start to chemically change. And that is research that I encourage people who are trying to be heart healthy. I encourage you to go after looking at that kind of scientific research that's been done
Mm-hmm.
about heating canola oils and stuff like that, cooking with those kinds of fats. Because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, eating almonds is not bad for you. But if you have almond oil and you heat it up in a pan to the point where it's smoking, it's totally changed its chemical
Mm-hmm.
composition at that point. And it
Mm-hmm.
might not be very good for you.
Okay.
So I encourage people to look into that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you're interested in it and you're interested in eating natural fats, um, yeah, by all means look into it because it can be very good for your health, even if you have had heart issues.
Okay. Now, I have okay. Some people are just coming in, so I just want to let you introduce you just one more time. This is my neighbor, Chef Brad Ledo, and we're getting kind of a an education right now as he's making us sourdough bread. By the way, I Jolie gave us a loaf of bread from
Yeah.
you. What had it in the freezer? Took it out the other night and that used on our chicken sandwiches.
Ooh,
And I
yummy.
showed them the bread and how spongy it was. Matter of fact, I use it as the picture, the thumbnail for here.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, and it was so good. And then a couple of nights later, we made sliders with
Oh,
it,
yummy.
and it was just delicious, delicious.
Yummy.
Um, I have there's a couple other little things in here. Do you mind us picking your brain?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Uh, Kath also, she has multiple sclerosis. Is also
Okay.
knowing that you're not a doctor.
Yes,
What foods would us MSers reduce inflammation in our bodies? There's three of us in here that have MS.
absolutely. Okay, so you said the key word in that, which is inflammation. And a big part about knowing how to reduce your inflammation is also knowing your own body, feeling into your own body and what it's telling you.
Yeah.
So if you eat something and you say, "Oh my God, this is so delicious," but after you eat it, you start feeling sluggish, you start feeling, a little brain foggy, or you just don't have energy and motivation like you normally would, make a little marker in your own head and your own memory about that and say, well,
We don't have a memory.
that's fair point. Fair point. But maybe you could write it down and say,
Yeah.
okay, I ate 3 chocolate chip cookies and I really, really loved them, but they didn't make me feel so good. Say,
Yeah.
okay, what was in those chocolate chip cookies? Well, I mixed Crisco and granulated sugar together, and it was really delicious, but man, it didn't make me feel so good.
Mhm.
And so I guess what my personal recommendation would be is start taking some of those things out of your diet that you just know can sit on a grocery store shelf for 2 years before it goes bad.
Yeah.
Your granulated processed white sugar, stuff that's been through chemical processes to make it
Mhm.
look and smell neutral, you know, like stuff that is made to look and smell white or
Mhm.
neutral. It
It
tends to be
sells.
hyper
It's
processed.
sexy.
It's sexy.
And if
Exactly.
and sex sells.
Exactly.
Yes.
Sexy foods are not always the healthiest foods. When you go to the farmer's market, they'll have a pile of apples, and some of those apples will have spots on them. You go to the grocery store, all of them are shiny and perfect.
Mhm.
Well, that apple with spots on it might have a few spots on it, but they're not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
And what's especially not going to hurt you is it hasn't been sprayed with paraffin wax. And we don't know what that paraffin wax is made out of. Maybe it's made out of processed soy, like
Mhm.
soy candles. They're made out of, processed paraffin soy. And
Mhm.
okay, that's in moderation. Who cares? A little bit is a little bit.
Mhm.
But if you're eating those things every single day, they can build up.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a little bit of Roundup
Mhm.
chemicals. It's just a little bit of soy wax. It's just a little bit
Yeah.
of A, B, and C. Those things can add up over time. So what I like to do is the thought experiment of it,
Mhm.
where you think of, okay, these are the foods that I normally eat. Maybe one week at a time, you can pick one thing that is something that you'd like to take out of that.
Mhm.
And for that one week, you try to take one thing out. Maybe the next week, you try to take another thing
Mhm.
out. And you're not just taking it out and saying, well, I can't eat apples anymore
It's just
because
process of elimination to see what your reaction is.
exactly. So, low inflammation foods are foods that your body is going to process nice and quickly.
Mhm.
So, again, you're going to hear me kind of preach about this, but natural fats. Natural fats, they are saturated fats. And in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we were taught saturated fats, triglycerides, they build up in your arteries, they kill you. Well, we now know from our research that that isn't always the case,
Mhm.
especially if you're going after high quality ingredients.
Mhm.
Um, so, for example, a lot of heart doctors would probably say you absolutely should not be eating bacon, right?
Mhm.
Bacon is salt, saturated fat, and protein. Depending on if your bacon has been cured, which means it has nitrates added to it to preserve it. Obviously, nitrates are not very good in high amounts and concentrations in the human body. But let's say you go to your local butcher shop and they have bacon that they made that
Mhm.
is uncured with no nitrates in it. You go home, you fry up that bacon, and you're eating saturated fat, salt, and protein. Our bodies use saturated fat immediately is energy.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes with the caveat to say you're not the kind of person who sits in a chair in the same place all day long and doesn't do a whole lot of movement.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not the kind of person who is living off of sugar. Because
Yeah.
sugar, I would say, is probably one of the most inflammatory things.
Yes.
But I would say that eating honey is good for you. Eating high
Local
quality
honey?
maple syrup, yep, local honey,
Local to your area.
local to your area.
Okay.
Even if it's not local to your area, if it's a high quality, then that's okay.
Okay.
You
All
know,
right.
right? And
Okay.
in moderation, you don't have to be eating spoonfuls of it throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want something sweet, maybe some honey or some high quality maple syrup, or even if it's say you are eating sugar.
I am eating sugar.
Say you are eating sugar.
I am eating sugar.
You're getting you're getting your sugar from something you made rather
Yes.
than out of a bag of Skittles.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna make your chocolate chip cookies, you're gonna put your brown sugar into it. Maybe you try to go out and find the highest quality brown sugar you can. Maybe it's a couple extra bucks on the shelf, but the process of feeling good about that,
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, this is such good quality brown sugar, and this chocolate chip cookie is going to be so good and so good for me."
Mm-hmm.
The
Well,
human brain is pretty powerful.
it
And
is.
so it's a lot about the story you're telling yourself while you're eating your food. If you're sitting there eating a chocolate chip cookie thinking, "Oh God, I shouldn't be doing this. This isn't good. I'm being a bad calamity girl right now."
It's out of eating sugar.
You know, everything in you is going to feel bad. You don't want to feel bad about it. You want to feel good about it. You want to tell yourself that this is what I need right now. It's giving me exactly what I need, and I'm making the choice.
Mm-hmm.
So, inflammation can come from so many places in our life, and I think stress is a big one. So
Yeah. Stress.
if you're putting so much
Oh,
stress on the things that you're eating, saying, "Oh God, I can't have this, but I really want it,"
yeah.
you're stressing yourself out, and you don't need that.
Yeah.
You need to keep your stress as low as you possibly can. And
Yep.
if food is stressing you out, then take a step back and tell yourself different stories about what you're eating. Even if you know, okay, this apple didn't come from the farmer's market. So what?
Mm-hmm.
So what? I am not going to stress myself out about it. And I'm going to say, I really need this apple right now. It tastes so good. It feels so good. I'm really happy I'm eating it. I think,
Mm-hmm.
I
Or
think
if we put it into a fritter
you
and
put it
make a
into a
fritter.
fritter and you say, man, this fritter
Oh,
is gonna
yeah.
make me feel so good today. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Because when people talk about grandma's food tasted so much differently, it's because she put the love into it.
Yes.
And that's what that is when you're eating food at grandma's house, you're eating pure love.
Or at my house.
Or
Yeah.
at Calamity Girl's
Or
house, you're eating
at Brad's
pure love.
house. Yes.
Love is the secret ingredient, and that's no BS because it really means that you're taking the stress and the anxiety out of eating, out of your food, and you can just enjoy it. And you can just tell yourself, wow, this is excellent, and wow, I feel so good.
Don't worry. Be happy. Be happy now. Do 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 do.
Exactly.
Now let me ask you. You're talking about sugar. When you're making cookies, what kind of sugar do you use? Do you use CNH sugar, or do you use, say, the more natural sugar? What do you use?
So obviously, it depends on where I'm cooking, who it's for, all of those things. But if you said, all right, Brad, get all the ingredients to make the best chocolate chip cookies you can
Mm-hmm.
in your own house, I'm probably going to go get their fair trade organic unbleached raw sugar.
Okay.
and I'll get good quality butter, high quality flour,
Mm-hmm.
and get chocolate chips that read the package.
Yes.
If it says
Read packages.
cocoa powder, cocoa liquor, sugar, and whatever fat they use for their binding agent, that's if it's a short ingredient list, that's probably the one I'm going to grab.
Okay.
If it's the one that says it has soy lecithin and sodium bromide preservative and this and that in it, like, okay, maybe it's the first one that I see because it's the Nestle right at eye level,
Yeah.
but maybe that's not the one that I should be grabbing. And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe you go after the package that's a little bit lower on the shelf and you got to grab it and you read it and
Mm-hmm.
you say, oh, this only has 4 or 5 ingredients in it and I
Mm-hmm.
can pronounce most of them.
Exactly.
Sounds good. This is the one
Yeah.
I'm going to use.
The words aren't, 19 letters long.
And I've made chocolate chip cookies using maple syrup before. That's a great sugar substitute if you can get your hands on it. And I'm talking real maple syrup, not Aunt Jemima,
Yeah.
corn
Yes.
syrup with color and thickener added to it.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
Oh, hey, someone is saying here, Frank is saying he's a diabetic and his doctor says no honey or stevia.
Okay, so I can understand why your doctor would say that. And again, I am not a doctor, but stevia, for example, is something that can create a glucose response in your blood.
Okay.
So when you consume it, your body is going to figure out how to process it and it's going to jump up the glucose in your blood. You're going to get a glucose spike. And for diabetics, it's very, very bad. Honey can also do the same thing where it gives you a glucose spike. Now, that is definitely something you want to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
But in moderation, say you enjoy your morning tea with honey. If you put a teaspoon in there and you drink it slowly, you not just gulp it down and take an extra spoonful of honey with it. I would care to say that your body is going to have an easier time adjusting to that. Stevia is natural, but it is processed and refined, and
Okay.
it comes from a leaf. Like if you were to find a stevia leaf in the wild and you ate it, it would probably taste like a plant. It wouldn't taste like stevia,
Yeah.
the granules that you see in the store,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very concentrated.
Okay. Okay.
It's a concentrated form of that plant.
Okay.
Um, and honey is concentrated byproduct of pollen and propolis and all of these things you find in the beehive. Um, so you just have to keep that in mind when you are choosing to consume those things, that you want to do it in moderation, do it in a way that it's not going to be like dropping a bomb on your body.
Mm-hmm.
Getting
Mm-hmm.
taking a few sips of tea with some honey in it, your body probably isn't going to freak out. It's going to know what's going on and it's going to adjust to it. But
Okay.
I can only speak to my own experiences, and obviously uh, consult with your doctor, um, consult with your own experience. You know your body better than I know your body. And that way, maybe honey isn't the worst thing in the world to have as a diabetic. I think it's a lot better than having a Tootsie Roll.
Well, it doesn't. Well, what about a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down? No, not in this case.
Maybe not when you're diabetic.
Hey, should we give that another?
We should.
Okay, let's go for it. By the way, you need to tell Jolie that the chat women, some of the women in there think that you're uh, pleasant on the eyes.
Oh,
We'll say it
I'm
that way.
always wondering, you know.
Okay.
Okay,
Do you
so
want to tip that for
yep,
us?
we'll go
And
into
then
our second round here
the,
of stretch.
this will,
Oh, I see.
yeah, that.
There we go. There we go. Gonna go into round 2 here of stretching and folding.
Here's our water. Stretch and fold. We're not talking about the.
Stretch and fold. It's good for you all around.
And we're not talking about the stuff on your behind. So just stretch and fold. I love this, you know, and with each rise, it just gets even more.
Yeah.
It's really soft.
Right.
It's very, very stretchy, very pliable.
Absolutely.
It smells amazing.
Yes, exactly. So she is nailing it on all of our descriptors here. So you can see in comparison to where we were about a half an hour ago, this is starting to get much more smooth and supple. It's not as shaggy and ragged anymore, which is really what you're looking for to know that you have activated your gluten. You're starting to get a nice dough ball that's formed. Because when we take this out of these bowls,
Look, it's already starting. You can see it right
oh
there.
yes, oh yeah,
Yeah. Can you see that bubble in there?
yeah. So she's got a nice bubble right
Yeah.
there that's coming.
And so, are you ready?
No, we're doing great.
Okay. Because everybody is really enjoying this. They are, uh, from what I'm seeing, they are saying that they're getting a great education, that they love it. Now, they're talking about also lead because somebody mentioned that lead was in Hershey chocolate.
Oh my gosh. So my beautiful, amazing wife has done tons of research on food, and one of her new discoveries.
Well, she has a PhD.
She's working on her PhD currently.
Okay.
But one of the things that she recently discovered through research is chocolate, Hershey's chocolate bars, and basically any chocolate you're going to be buying on your grocery store shelf is really high in levels of lead and I believe cadmium as well.
What's cadmium?
It's another heavy metal.
Okay.
So, when we're talking about things like trying to help inflammation, trying to help yourself relieve inflammation in your body, taking out heavy metals is really, really going to help. Detoxifying heavy metals from your blood, such as lead, mercury, cadmium, things like that, they are things that you don't want in there and they're not going to make you feel very good. So, I encourage everyone to do their own research. And as we say, everything in moderation, of course. But um, this is something that I really never thought about. But when you talk about products that are concentrated, like how I was talking about stevia, chocolate it's a concentrated product. I mean, they're growing the cocoa beans, they're grinding them up, and they come in your chocolate bars fairly concentrated form. I mean, if you were to go out there and grab a cocoa pod off of the tree and eat the raw cocoa beans, of course, they're going to taste nothing like chocolate. And you're probably not going to get high levels of lead and cadmium from eating a raw cocoa pod. But it's just, it's not the same experience. It's not going to be what you're looking for. Um, so I guess my point in that is when you're doing your research on stuff like this, like you're thinking why? Okay, why is there lead or cadmium in chocolate? Well, maybe the cistern in the country that cocoa is being grown in has contamination in it. Maybe it's not a ton of contamination, but once the tree sucks it up and concentrates it into the plant, and then that plant is further concentrated into your chocolate bar, oh my gosh, I have really high levels of this thing I didn't want in there. Excuse me.
Here you go. There you go.
Whew, blessings. But these are just, I like to call them thought exercises, because you don't have to adopt this into your life and say, oh my God, I can never ever even look at another Hershey's chocolate bar again because I know the evils inside. It's that you give yourself the freedom to start looking at these products a little differently and
Mm.
thinking about these products a little differently. And so when you're choosing, you're at the bank and they have that bowl of candy that you can
Yeah.
take, and you say, ooh, a Hershey's chocolate bar. Maybe that thought comes up to you and say, maybe not right now. Maybe I'll
Maybe
wait.
a Ghirardelli
Yeah,
chocolate bar.
maybe a Ghirardelli, or maybe I'll wait until it's uh it's 4th of July with the grandkids, and I really want a s'more that they made for me. And you have a s'more.
What?
Because that's love. That's
Yeah.
coming from a place of love. It's got the blessing on it. So
Yeah. It's
it's
got
a
the blessing of love. Eat it.
it's a little
Yeah.
different. So what I'm saying, I'm not the kind of person who's going to stand here and say, oh, research has shown it has all this lead and all this whatever in it, and you can never even step foot near a place that has Hershey's chocolate bars ever again. It's no, you just take these things into account when you're making decisions on what foods you want to grab, what things you want to add into your diet, what things you want to take out of your diet. If it's your goal to live a healthier life, feel a little better on a daily basis, have a little more energy, it's totally up to you.
Hmm. Oh my God. Everybody's very, very interested. Now they're talking, Tim Slappy, his husband, he's already making everybody. Are you jealous? I'm going to be eating artisan bread. Yes. And yeah, she's now craving artisan bread. Roseanne, Nikki has been asking a lot of great questions for you. What for somebody who is in our age demographics
Hmm.
with health conditions, but you are on a big time budget,
Yes.
what is it that you recommend cutting out? And is it the processed foods
I
or
would say, yeah, your garden variety processed foods that are containing a lot of those oils that I was talking about, like, your Lay's potato chips and your Cheetos are gonna for sure contain a decent amount of canola oil in them. And if you really are looking for ways to help the inflammation in your body, I think that could be really high on your list of just saying, I'm going to cut this stuff out. I don't think I want to have any of this stuff anymore.
Mhm. So making from scratch is always best, isn't it?
Making from scratch is always best.
Mhm.
Even eating in restaurants these days, I've worked in restaurants for 10 years. I know what goes into that food. I know what it looks like getting those products off the back of a truck. Um, if you're eating at a restaurant for multiple meals a day and you're looking for ways to become healthier and feel a little bit better in your life, start telling yourself that, okay, I'm going to take lunch with me today. Instead of going out and going to Chipotle or McDonald's or wherever you want to pick up a quick lunch from, you say, okay, I'm going to bring a bag of raisins. I'm going to bring a bag of nuts. I'm going to bring a sandwich with Calamity Girl's homemade roast beef, sliced fresh at home.
Mhm.
I'm going to have, a bacon, lettuce, tomato on homemade bread.
Hmm.
Um,
That's my favorite.
maybe you throw soup in a mason jar. Make a big batch of Sunday soup or Sunday stew and
Hmm.
throw it in a mason jar and reheat that at work or eat it cold. Start replacing some of your restaurant meals with homemade food. That could
Hmm.
also be something that really makes a big difference, and
Good for your budget too.
it's good for your budget.
Hmm.
Exactly.
It just takes some time and planning.
Yeah.
Time and planning. How often are you? Okay, here's a good question. I'm going to hire you for, I have a whole bunch of people who are going to be eat off of my 12-foot island. This is pretty big, isn't it?
It's the biggest island ever.
It is. But you know what? It's not bad because you can stretch out, you have plenty
Oh
of room,
gosh.
and
It's
then they have their area.
it's a cook's dream to have this much counter
Uh,
space in the kitchen.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say that um, uh, the chat all decided that they're coming up to your Airbnb and that they want you. There's not enough room in there to cook, so you come down here and then you're going to cook for all them. How much planning do you put into that? How many hours are you doing? Say if you cook for 8 people.
If I cook for 8 people and it's, a casual dinner, it's not 4 courses and a palate cleanser and all that stuff. If we're just going to sit down and have like a nice family style meal, I would say that I'm probably going to take, well, where we live, easily 2 hours of shopping with travel and all of that stuff. It'll take 40 minutes to get to the store, probably 20, 25 minutes of shopping to get the things I'm looking for, and then
Mm-hmm.
40 minutes back home. So it'll be probably 2 hours of shopping, and within that shopping process, it's planning and saying, oh, the broccoli looks great right now. The
Mm-hmm.
these greens look good, so we'll make a salad. So that's just kind of how I do it, where it's like you go just if you're not feeling inspired or you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what you're going to make, just go to the store and start grabbing some stuff. And then creativity can start to flow from there. You say,
An onion and a garlic and start from there.
yeah, exactly. And you say, oh my God, they have sweet corn. So why don't we have fajitas with sweet corn? And,
Mhm.
you could just put together stuff that you like and you know
Mhm.
that you have access to. But so what I would say is I'll probably spend a couple hours shopping and planning, and then I'll probably spend maybe another couple hours prepping stuff if I'm going to be feeding 8 people, we're saying. And that's just kind of my process on it. Obviously, I have so much time cooking under my belt that I tend to be pretty quick and
Okay.
efficient at getting stuff done. But that's cooking for a larger group. Say you
Mhm.
just have a family of 2 people or 4 people who you're cooking for on a regular basis.
Let me call me again. That's not even that heavy. So relax.
the the dog rodeo. I live in the dog rodeo as well. Any passerby on the road, it's immediately all hands on deck. So,
Absolutely.
but really, when it comes down to it, like my mom, God bless her, she cooked almost all of our meals at home, which is a
Mhm.
huge part of why I do what I do now.
That was the question I had is why did you do this?
Yeah. I didn't grow up with the idea in my head that I was going to be a chef professionally and this was my dream. Um, but looking back on it, it's completely obvious because I grew up in a family where my mom would she worked full time most of my life, and she would usually take a Saturday and a Sunday, clip coupons, go through that stuff, and say, okay, this night I'm making enchiladas. This night's leftovers. This night's going to be chicken on the grill. This night's going to be this. You know, she would have
Plan her
her
menu.
week planned out. And I will say, yes, it takes discipline and it takes the wherewithal to sit down and do that. But if you are able to commit yourself to it, you can one, save money, and you can two, make healthier food at home. And your meals don't have to be um, they don't have to be so complex. I
Hmm.
mean, even my wife and I at home, we eat very simple food as far as a protein, a starch, and a vegetable.
Hmm.
And you can mix and match that like crazy and decide what you like and what you don't like. And maybe in the summertime, you're eating something on the grill and then a baked potato and a salad. And that's what your dinner is. And you don't have to go crazy with it, you know?
Does she ever cook for you?
Yeah, she's cooked for me a few times.
Okay.
Not all the time,
Yeah,
but
you're
I'm the
mainly
one who
the.
usually is cooking, that's for
Okay.
sure. But
Absolutely.
she's
Absolutely.
fully capable of doing that. She's made
Sure.
me excellent. She makes a heck of a shepherd's pie.
Does she
That
really?
she really does.
Oh, and yeah, I husband loves shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
That's his. Mm. And he, who what shepherd's pie we really enjoyed is from Cheesecake Factory.
Oh yeah.
They have a terrific. Uh, Now, if
Good
somebody wanted
recipe.
to go out to eat, where would you suggest more of a chain like a macaroni grill, or would you say more of a small mom and pop place is better?
Of
Well,
course, support your small businesses, support people in your community who are making an effort to do something different than what the chain restaurants are doing. I think
mm-hmm,
that our culture, our capitalist consumerist culture that is America, which has tons of benefits too. I'm not knocking that at all, but it kind of bred that um, commercialized restaurant feel.
mm-hmm,
I think people are starting to get away from that a little bit
mm-hmm.
because they know what to expect. So I would say if you're able to, you have a family-owned diner or you have an Italian family that owns a pizzeria or stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
support those businesses, and you're probably going to get better quality food in general.
Yes. Now, this leads me to a question. Uh, you know, Here in our town, we have one little teeny cafe, maybe seats 20.
Yeah.
And it was available for a little while. How come you didn't jump in on, I think I'm going to do the restaurant thing or the cafe thing for my
So
community and give that a go?
so that was a tough decision because I originally toured that little cabin restaurant
Hmm.
about about 5 months before we ever even knew we were going to purchase property in this area. And I really considered, okay, we could start this adventure. My wife and I could do it together, and it could be really, really amazing. But something about restaurants is that when it's yours, you are absolutely married to it to the point where you are working there 60, 80, or 100 hours a week. And I had
Hmm.
seen that. I had been there. I had had restaurateurs open restaurants with me. It wasn't my money, but it was, my creative backing and stuff like that. And we had a restaurant in the heart of Minneapolis, and it did excellent. But man, was I miserable because I was there
Constantly.
constantly. I mean, it was sleep, work, sleep, work. I
Yeah.
mean, there was rarely any life outside of that, which is admirable in so many ways if that's the lifestyle you're willing to commit yourself to
Hmm.
make that kind of a business successful.
Few
But
people can probably do that on a long-term basis.
absolutely, it pulls it can pull people apart. But a
Hmm.
lot of people can flourish doing it. So my decision to not open that restaurant was kind of for multiple reasons, but the main reason was is I was that was the year where I had really started my at-home cooking business. It was going really well, and I was going to have to completely stop doing that if I wanted to open that as a restaurant.
Hmm.
It would have kind of narrowed my focus all the way into just that one thing,
Hmm.
and that wasn't what I'm interested in anymore.
Okay.
I really do like to have the opportunity to be multifaceted and have
Hmm.
different experiences on a weekly or daily basis. For me as a person, that's just what feeds me and keeps the fire alive in myself. If I'm doing the same thing over and over, day in, day out,
Burnout.
I burn out so quickly.
Yeah.
And so if I have the ability to go to different people's homes and meet different people from out of town or their family, or you get this wealth
Mm.
of experience from
Yeah.
the personal aspect of it, which is, some chefs don't care about that. Some chefs are like, lock me in the kitchen. I don't want to see any of my customers. I don't want to know who they are. I don't need to meet them.
Hmm.
I'm just going to make the food and the server can do the talking and do
Yeah.
the thing, which is
Yeah.
great. That works for some people's personality types. But for me, I was ready to break out of that. I was ready to start to have that personal connection with the people who I was feeding and my food itself and say,
Hmm.
this is what I did. This is why I did it this way. And I'd love to know what you think.
Brad, I think that you were just I'm getting to know you even more and more, and I think you're a tremendous person. And I'm so thankful that you're taking this time um, to walk us through all of this, and then
Of
in between
course.
answer questions and give us tips. And it's been really this has been very educational.
Well, thank you all for being here and watching, and thank you to Andy for Calamity Girl for having me in her beautiful kitchen. I mean, just look at this, you guys. Like, isn't that the coolest backsplash to any stove you've ever seen? Oh,
Well, I have this idea because the reason that I had them do something like this was because I didn't want to splash oil on or anything on my beautiful cabinets
yeah,
because we paid a lot of money for those,
of course, right.
and it's a dream. It's just a dream.
Well, it's so cool going into a kitchen that someone who cooks got to design,
Yeah.
because that it shows completely. Because sometimes you go into kitchens and they're absolutely beautiful, but you go to use their stove and it's like she said, the stove doesn't have proper ventilation. It's splashing all over their hardwood cabinets.
Hmm.
There's gaps in between everywhere where oil and grease and the rice that you're
Yeah,
tossing
I
can
know
just
that.
fall into.
I didn't want to do that. And that's why I thought, you know what can I do to make this cool? And so this is what it came up with.
Yeah.
And then our contractor, he's an artist himself,
Hmm.
and so he's the one who came up with all this and
The copper. Yeah.
and bending it and and making it so that nothing shows, that
Yes.
we tacked it up there.
It
So,
reminds me of a old Wyoming saloon.
does it
It's
really?
where you would see,
Cool.
Andy cooking up steaks for all the cowboys after they've come in.
You
There's a
know,
gunfight going on. She's still cooking.
we have somebody in our chat. His name is 307 Joe. He's a very good friend of ours,
Uh-huh.
and he used to cowboy a lot. Yeah. Hey, I have a question for you. Okay, oh no, Kath has a question. If you have a question, highlight my name and then ask the question because that's a lot easier on me. Okay, do you have repeat customers that you just love?
I do. Over the years, I've kind of established a small network of repeat clients and customers in this area that are incredible people with, beautiful homes, and they just love to eat good food and have a good time. And that's really what it comes down to is I'm there to help them achieve the goal of eating good food, feeling good, and having a really nice time. And if I can be a part of that, it fires me up. I love it. That's what keeps me going.
Nikki Jeffers, she says, what the heck is a palate cleanser?
So a palate cleanser, say you roll up to dinner and you ate lunch early and you've been, just drinking water or drinking a Coke all day, and you're like, man, my mouth just feels kind of sad. You kind of you don't have a very bright, shiny feeling in your mouth anymore. To get you ready to eat a really flavorful, nice dinner. Maybe sometimes you'll have just a little ball of maybe some lemon sorbet with a fresh sprig of mint on top. And it'll kind of wash your taste buds and get your taste buds um, kind of back online to get ready for the experience to come. So normally, a palate cleanser is something really small. You eat in just one or two bites. It's normally something that has really fresh flavors to it, not heavy flavors like chocolate or peanut butter or tons of
Mm-hmm.
salt or red meat or anything like that to it. Normally, it'll be something that's kind of citrusy. Maybe,
Parsley?
yeah, like let's say you have a nice cherry tomato cut in half with a dollop of fresh sour cream and some just really fresh, nice parsley, dill, basil, whatever herb, but it's just something that wakes up your mouth
Mhm.
and it washes out the rest of your day from your mouth, and you're like, all right, now I'm ready to eat a salad or have a cocktail or whatever it is. It's like it's just kind of reinvigorating your taste buds, getting ready to eat for another time that day and actually fully take in all the flavors.
Okay. Well, there's so many questions. Should we do this and then ask
Yeah,
questions, or
we're
what do you want
about
to
to our
do?
last round here.
Okay. All right.
So let's go ahead.
Alrighty. And then, okay.
So before I fold mine, I'm going to show you
Oh,
guys just kind of the consistency that we have here. And you can see it's not flopping out of the bowl, but it still has a little bit of runniness to it, a little bit of hydration, but it's not just going to slide on out. So, and another thing you're looking for in your sourdough is I've been talking about, does it pull away from the bowl? So you can see how
mm-hmm.
it's sticking to the bowl here. If I just start to, break it away from the bowl and it pulls away all in one piece, then you can start to see that your gluten is activated. So that's kind of just something you're looking for in your texture when you're making
Mm-hmm.
sourdough is if it's too sticky, either it's gone too far in its fermentation or it's
Mm-hmm.
just too wet.
So, how many rises do you, is this gonna, is it the best of the three rises or,
Yeah, so I think that
oh,
I
I moved that
normally
wrong.
it's all right. I normally
Maybe you can tilt that up just slightly. There we go. There we go.
Okay, so I normally will do about 3 rounds of this stretching and folding.
Okay.
You can do more, but as I said, in Wyoming, our dough and stuff here ferments quickly. So
Yeah.
3 tends to be pretty much as you want to go.
What if you're at sea level?
If you're at sea level, you can adjust to what you're seeing and smelling. But you could go 4 rounds with 30 minutes in between each of them. That would
Okay.
probably be fine.
Okay, that's good to know. I would not have known that. Would
Yeah.
never have known that. Okay. Now, does dough need to be treated delicately?
Yes. So once your dough has done its bulk rise or its bulk fermentation in your basket or just in a bowl with some parchment paper, you're really going to want to be careful with it after that because you don't want to let all that air out of it. You don't want to let all of that work that the sourdough starter has done, you don't want that to all be for nothing. You just want to be as gentle with it so you're not breaking or stretching or pulling apart the dough in any way. But that's a spot that we are going to get to here. We're not there yet. We're still at the spot where you can be a little bit more uh, aggressive with just your stretching and your folding. Um, so there are a couple of different methods that one can use when they're going about forming their actual loaf here. You can either do another rise, or we could go straight from right here to starting to form our dough ball and then go right into the basket for the bigger rise. That's kind of up to you and how much time you have to devote to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we want to show you guys what we're doing here,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to go ahead and transfer my dough onto a work surface here and show you the forming of the dough ball.
I even have, where to go? Oh my gosh. I think it's right here in here. Oh, oh no. Oh, there's one other place. Um, when you're looking for something, you can't find it, but that's okay. Never mind.
Okay, so really a bench scraper, which is just a flat,
Mm-hmm.
straight edged tool that you're going to be able to scrape things with and scrape your work surface with.
Mm-hmm.
That's really going to help in the sourdough process.
One of these.
Yep, one of
I
those.
use it for everything.
They're a great tool to have in the
Yes.
kitchen. I definitely recommend it. And so I'm not going to flour this surface. And the reason for that is what we're doing right now is really trying not to dehydrate the dough. By flouring and adding flour, you're going to dehydrate your dough. And in this in forming our loaf, we really don't want to be adding raw flour to it because we're going to see that what happens when you add raw flour to a dough like this is it's not going to incorporate, and when you bake it you're going to have raw flour throughout your dough, and that's just personally I don't think that's the texture you want to be going for.
Okay.
So what I'll show you here.
By the way, Roseanne had a date tonight and she canceled it because this is more interesting. Oh my
Thanks,
God.
Roseanne. So this spot that we're at now is going to be just.
Do you want me to do that too?
Nope, we're going to keep
Okay.
yours in there for just now.
Okay.
So a lot of the time what you'll see is that, look, it's sticking to my work surface and you're
Okay.
thinking, oh my God, how is he ever going to deal with that? And that's okay. Because what we're going to do right here is we're going to start folding this dough, making this zigzag pattern on itself, just folding it
Oh.
over. And then we can take our bench scraper and just start forming a dough ball. And it's going to want to stick to stuff. It's a high hydration dough, meaning it has lots of water in it. But because we've developed that gluten, it's not just staying stuck to surfaces. It does
Mm-hmm.
want to start to pull away. So
Yep.
now you can see I am just forming a ball. I am getting a ball all put together here.
Oh, by the way, hooty hoo.
Hooty hoo.
Hooty hoo. That's our thing. You're free to use it.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
And now,
You're I'm sorry, you're very swift and it's
well,
obvious you're a professional. Because
done
I am not a professional. I'm
done
not a
this
chef.
a lot, but I'm still learning all the time too. So after we've started to kind of get a ball put together here, we are going to let this rest for a minute
Okay.
because the more we've agitated this, the more more of the gases from the
There we go. Oh, I need to wash my hands. Talk amongst yourself. The topic is bench scraper. Okay. Are you making this a lot of legal work? Okay, I can probably get there. Well, while it's cooking, I probably can get in there going. That's probably better. Happy birthday to Stan. Okay. Alrighty. So
So
then.
so because sourdough is a long process here,
Mm-hmm.
there might have to be a part 2 of this video because it takes a while for your dough, once it's in wherever it's going to rise, to
Mm-hmm.
rise. It's probably going to, your bulk rise is probably going to take a couple hours at
Okay.
room temperature.
Okay.
But also, what you can do is instead of having it rise at room temperature, you can also put it in the fridge overnight. So
Oh.
uh, the dough is not going to ferment as quickly in the fridge. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
go nice and slow. And so you can just pop it out in the morning, turn your oven on to 500 degrees with your Dutch oven in there. So you're going to be cooking inside of one of these, a Dutch oven,
Yeah.
and you get it whacking hot, 500 degrees. And
Mhm.
most people are going to be like, why would you bake something in that hot of an oven? It's going to burn. Well, you want this to cook hot. You want it to get that crust forming on it. And when it's cooking inside of a Dutch oven, all of the steam that's coming off of the bread when it's cooking is helping the bread keep from burning. And it's helping that crust form, believe it or not. So obviously, you're going to cook with your lid on for about 30, 40 minutes, maybe a little bit less, depending on how your oven cooks. There's all variables in that. But then you're going to take the lid off for the remainder of your cooking time, which is about 10 or 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And what the New York bakeries do to get that really amazing crust on their sourdough bread is they will vent their oven so they'll leave it just cracked
Mm-hmm.
and turn the heat off, but let that bread sit in that cracked oven, and that way that
With the top
crust
on or off?
with the top off.
Okay, top off.
And that way that bread is going to form a really nice crust, really crunchy outside, soft inside, and as long as you haven't dehydrated your dough, your bread's still going to be nice and fluffy and stuff in the middle. But as I said, it's a science experiment. It's not going to be that way every single time. There's going to be variables that happen. You need to be okay with that.
Okay. So should we do a part 2 of this then?
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
What I want to cover in the rest of today
Okay.
is we're going to get it into our baskets for the rising. And then possibly tomorrow morning, possibly in a few hours, depending on what Calamity Girl wants to do. Then really all you're doing is you are turning this over onto a piece of parchment paper, popping the dough out, and then that dough on the parchment paper will go right into your Dutch oven. Hot Dutch oven has to be preheated, and then into your oven for cooking.
Will the dough stay in this shape when you plop it in?
Ideally, if you've made a really good dough, it'll hold its shape, but it it's not always perfect. So sometimes you'll plop it out onto your parchment paper and you'll see it'll start to kind of run a little bit. That's okay. It doesn't mean that your bread is ruined or anything, but make sure to get it into that hot Dutch oven to start cooking right away, and it'll start to form its shape. But that's honestly one of the biggest challenges of cooking at high altitude is that your dough is really going to ferment so quickly and have all of these variables adding to it that most of the time it's not just going to hold its shape when you plop it out of your basket or whatever, and it's going to be a little bit flatter than bread at sea level, but that's okay. That's just
it's amazing.
That's just what we work with here.
Amazing. Yeah.
And,
Okay.
And the less flat that you can achieve, the better.
Okay.
So now that this is hung out for a minute.
Here, let me move the camera.
So that just rested for 5 minutes just by itself so that the gluten has a chance to assimilate with each other. What we're going to do here is flour our basket. And it's very simple. We're just going to go with a pretty light layer of flour all around the fabric here.
I need to get some of these.
And if you don't have these, you can just use parchment in a bowl.
That's what I do use, is parchment in a bowl.
And so plenty of flour is okay on this because if you have excess, you can always brush it off. And I'm not folding this flour into the dough.
That was my question but flour is going to dry it out.
Right. So flour on the outside, fine. Flour on the inside, not what you're looking for.
Okay.
So what we're going to do here is do one more round of forming our ball.
I'm having such a great time.
I'm having a great time also. So now is when I'm going to just need a little bit of flour to help me extract my dough ball off of the countertop here.
Okay.
Okay.
I am noticing how gentle you're being with the flour, or I mean with the dough.
With the dough,
yes,
right.
because dough it's alive now.
Right.
And you have to be very careful with it.
Right. You don't want to manhandle it. And that's just because, you're trying to keep all of those gases in there. See, I just like to tuck it all together. And now it's going to go right into this basket here. And I'm just closing up the seams that are still there on top. Okay. And I want to show you guys, you see how the bread has a little wiggle to it, but it's not slopping around. still kind of holding its shape.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what we're looking for.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so this is just going to get a little dusting of flour on top so that the plastic doesn't stick to it.
Okay.
Okay. And then we can just put our plastic on top. And like I said, this can go into your fridge overnight. You can
Okay.
let it rise at room temperature on your counter for a couple hours until you're ready to bake it. But that's, that's really up to you and what your schedule is like. Um,
Okay.
that, that's something that is is nice about sourdough where you can pop it in the fridge and kind of work with it when you are ready to work with it. But it is also a little bit of a curse because it's time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
When
Mm-hmm.
I get ready to make sourdough bread, it's normally I'm reserving the better part of an afternoon to do it, or I'm doing it at night to stick it in the fridge so I can bake it in the morning.
Do you do several loaves at a time?
I usually do, yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
usually do 2 or 3 at a time just to
Mm-hmm.
make it worth it.
Worth
So
the
that
time, yes.
exactly, worth the time.
Absolutely.
And so
Okay.
you can see my bowl is fairly clean. There wasn't much that stuck to the bottoms. The stuff that's here on the sides, I mean, you don't need to worry too much about that. But if you pull your dough out and it's just leaving a bunch of stuck residue to the bottom of your bowl, you've probably got too wet of a dough, and you're gonna need to try to work with it like that. Because like I said, adding raw flour to it at this point
No.
is just not gonna work that well.
Okay, that is
So,
good to know. I would have put in raw flour.
right, which you can.
Yeah.
But
But
you can.
still, this is good to know. This is really good to know.
And so now this one is going to be your turn.
Okay.
You're going to
Oh
get
boy.
to recreate what I did here a little bit.
Okay.
And just clear that to the side.
You see how nervous I am? I'm shaking. Okay.
So what you're doing here is you're just going to flop it out onto your work surface.
Okay.
And you're going to
Like
start.
this or just
Yeah, however
open?
you want to do
Okay.
it. Doesn't really matter.
I'll help you along. Oh, big. Okay, guys. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now I just pull and
Yep, you can pull and do some zigzags. And there you go.
okay.
You know exactly what to do.
You guys, this is really
And after you've done some zigzags, you can start to work it with the sprinkler a little bit.
okay.
See, yours is really, you got a really nice ball formed up.
Okay.
Okay, I'll meet you out there. That's looking really, really nice.
Oh. Okay.
Absolutely. That's going to be a nice loaf, I guarantee it.
Hey. This is, look at this.
So that looks good. So you can probably just give it a little cover, let it rest here for just a couple minutes.
Okay. Because it got worked over. It needs to rest before it gets beaten up again.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay. Okay. And you know what? Let me wash my hands up too, because I had to scroll back because the chat has a couple questions.
So
Can't let you go and then.
I'm just gonna show you guys. I'm gonna press on this a little bit. You see how it's springing back at me? It's not taking that press and keeping that shape. So how you know if your dough has fermented long enough is that it's when you press on it with your finger, it's going to hold that shape for a second before it starts to spring back. If you press your finger into it and it just keeps the shape that of where you poked it, then it's gone a little bit too far in your fermentation.
Wow.
You should just go ahead and bake it.
Okay.
but this is really springy right now. It's just springing right back when you poke it.
And
So
look at it, it's
that's,
already got, coming up. This is amazing.
yeah, I think it'll really take off once it, starts its bulk fermentation. It'll almost double in size in a
Okay.
matter of, like I said, a couple
Oh my
hours.
gosh.
But
Okay.
if you want to slow that down, just throw it in the fridge.
Okay. Okay. This is amazing. I've got a lot of things questions to ask real quick. Uh, just a second. Let me. Oh, darn it. Okay. Okay. I missed. Okay. Calamity Girl has the same. Oh, okay. Don't let the gases get out. Okay, just Mona. Hey, Mona, hooty hoo, how you doing? Good to see you. Um, just a second here. Because they know I'm slow. I like the swelling in our feet. Okay, yeah, right, Gab, that's right. I can smell it baking out. Oh, okay, Armis Bates here. Now, this gentleman is uh, he's a chef up in upstate New York.
Okay.
Yes. And now, what kind of chef are you? Uh, can you kind of let Armis, if he said, "Hey, I'm a chef too."
Armis, I was a restaurant chef for 10 years, and then, well, that's kind of a misnomer. I was a cook for probably 6 to 7 of those years, line cook or, lead line cook, kitchen manager kind of thing. And then got chef positions for the latter 4 or 5 years of my career. I opened 3 restaurants. 2 of them were in Wyoming, one was in Minneapolis. Um, I never
Jackson, in
worked
here in
in
Jackson.
I never worked in any Michelin star setting. I would still love to have that experience at some point in my life. It's just not really what's calling to me right now, going and staging at a Michelin star place and getting back in the basement peeling artichokes. Um, so right now, what I do is I'm a private chef. I work in people's homes and cook for them for dinner parties or personal meals, celebrations. Anything that you could need a chef for is kind of what I do. Aside from working in restaurants, there are a couple of my friends who still do catering through their restaurants and stuff like that, which I will occasionally help out with when they're in desperate need. I have a great friend who has a food truck in this area, and sometimes
Really?
I will help him out when he needs something. And
I didn't know they even had a food truck in the area. Hello,
they,
son.
well, in Jackson,
But yeah, but
Sagebrush Grill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah.
where does he
So
hang out at?
they mostly now do because Jackson, Wyoming City Council doesn't like food trucks.
Mm-mm.
Can't park anywhere and sell your food unless you have a permit to do so 2 days a week, and you have to be parked directly next to another food truck in order to do that. So my friend with
Oh, they
his
make it
food truck,
hard.
they make it very hard. So what my friend does is he does private events as well, but he will also do some of the town concert series, things like
Mm-hmm.
that happen in our area where um, either someone's going to come and set up to sell food, or if they are able to set up their food truck, that's the kind of things they do. But they also cater a lot of weddings, do things like that with their food truck, which is very popular in this area just because they make it very hard for you to retail anything out of a food truck or food trailer.
Mm-hmm. Isn't there like just 4 entities that own most of the food establishments
Yeah,
in Jackson?
there are
And I know that this could be a
restaurant
fine line for
groups
you.
that,
I
no,
understand.
I'm not, I've never been a part of
Okay.
any of those restaurant groups, but in
Okay.
our area, there, I would say 80 to 90% of the restaurants are owned by one of four restaurant groups, which is local to the area. Which I don't think is a bad thing per se. But in our area, it's really hard to maintain staffing. It's very seasonal. So what that it tends to be the case that employees are attracted to working for restaurant groups because they're able to offer more stability, whereas your traditional, single family owned or single proprietor owned restaurants just have a tougher time maintaining regular staffing and all of the all of the personnel that you need to keep a restaurant open year round, when in reality there is you're crazy busy for 5 months and then you're dead for 2 months, and then you're crazy busy for another 3 months and then you're dead for another 2 months. It's like so hard to sustain that as a single proprietor restaurant. It's just like you're constantly beating your head against the wall about what am I going to do to keep my staff for the off seasons and all of those things. So our area is very unique because a lot of a lot of the industry is based around tourism.
Mm-hmm. Hey, just a side note, I think that like once a month, a food truck or something like that. Heck, they could park it right here somewhere on my property, and then people would come for that. They would come for that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
in our county, it is a lot easier to have a food truck or a food trailer, and it's something that I considered for my business to have one, but uh, return on investment would be a little bit tough on.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, should we?
Yeah, I
Is
think
this
you're
guy
ready.
ready?
You're
Okay,
ready to
let
throw
me.
it in your basket here. So
Let me just.
I'll season your basket up a little bit
Okay.
with some flour for you.
Season. That's our word for the day. Season and ghee, because we all know that I love ghee and clarified. But matter of fact, I have a big thing right
A
here.
nice jar right there.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I like to cook with that. Okay.
Okay, so there you go. It's gonna want to stick, but that's all right. You know what to do. Just gonna
Am I doing it
give it
right?
some light, like how a cat bats the snout of a dog away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's
Perfect.
a good way to.
This quick little bop bop bop.
Uh, am I a good student?
You're excellent.
Oh,
I don't.
yay.
You probably didn't even need my tutelage.
Yeah, actually, I do because I was asking husband, I was telling husband, I have got to get this recipe from Brad. And then and I said, you know what, it's a whole process. I got to see it.
Okay. So go ahead and form your ball a little bit, and I'm going to give you a little bed of flour here to dip it in,
Okay.
so that we can get it off of the work surface.
Okay. Oh, somebody asked earlier, because we had this big debate about cleaning counters.
Mm-hmm.
The gal that I was telling you about, who is the she works in restaurants and makes sure they don't.
Yes, like
Yes.
health inspector.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like that. Yeah.
Well, department.
Yes. And we were talking about cleaning counters, and she said absolutely no Windex with like a ammonia, because ammonia will soap and water only.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I don't like any chemical-based cleaners. They all leave a residue, and that residue gets in your food. So
Okay.
regular old soap and water. So
Okay.
what you can try to do now is get all the way under it and transfer it onto your flour.
Okay. Whoops.
It's
This
going to
is
be a
not
little sticky,
easy.
but you can
We can
always
do
pry
it.
it off of your hand.
Yep.
Okay, you're close.
Yay!
There we go.
I did it. Okay.
Hooty hoo.
Hoo-dee-hoo. On to yeah.
Okay,
And just
lovely.
like that. All right.
So give your hands a little dampening,
Okay.
maybe just
Here's
the
our
tips of your fingers there.
flour.
And so now you're just going to give it one more crossover. There you go.
Stretch and
Yep.
fold.
Stretch and fold over. Okay. So now that it's floured and it's not sticking to our work surface,
Okay.
we can transfer over to the basket here.
Alrighty. Should I do it like all the way
So
around?
go ahead and grab your bench scraper
Okay.
and just get underneath it and hold it on top with your hands. There you go. Now plop it down. Perfect.
I threw it. I
That was
didn't
a
mean
steady
to.
plop.
That was a steady
And
plop.
you're looking good. You don't have any open seams or parts that are tearing apart on each other. So
Okay.
that's perfect.
Okay. That's perfect. So then where did my
Where did I put your plastic? Did I get rid of it? I might.
that's okay. We have some in here. So
Here, I got you.
thank
You
you.
go do a wash. I got your plastic.
Okay. All right, guys. As I sing happy birthday. Sam. No, I don't know if he's here or not. He might be.
Look at that. Nice little jiggle to it, but it's still kind of holding its shape. That's what we're looking for. A lot of the process of learning sourdough making is just knowing what you're looking for. And that's why I've really tried to show you guys some of the textures, the stickiness, the roughness, how the dough started getting more smooth as we stretched it. Because instead of giving you a recipe, I'm going to give you markers to look for and feel for. Because I think most of us are visual and experience based learners.
Mm-hmm.
So, what it comes down to is when you're playing around with it at home and you're doing it, you're going to want to poke and touch and feel and say, yeah, that kind of looks like what Brad and Calamity Girl did. Or this looks like it's a little too loose, or maybe this is a little too dry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going to be able to come reference this video if you want, or just start to get that feel for, oh, I poked my dough and man, it didn't spring back at all. What's going on there? And you go back to the video and say, oh, well, Brad said that was maybe my dough has gone too long in fermenting, or maybe I added too much sourdough into it, so it's just kind of ran away with it eating all of the food that we gave it. Because really, those yeast bacteria are just feeding off of that raw flour and the innate sugars that are in raw flour, and that's what makes bread so delicious. Is when we brown it and caramelize those sugars and get that reaction, it is what gives it all of its flavor.
You know, I have to tell you, when you get your YouTube up and going, it's going to take off. And here's the reason why. People love live. They love to participate in the live.
Oh,
Am I
absolutely.
right, you guys? For a slice of bread. That's right. Here's some joke. Yeah, I'll come up for a slice of bread. It's going to be the best bread ever.
I think these are going to be some really good loaves.
Yeah, I do
We're
too.
seeing a lot of good signs here.
Yeah. So you guys, thumbs up. You guys like this? This is something that you would like to see more of. Roseanne, she has a comment. She says, "My dream is to open a very small diner or shop in the future, but I would not have anyone but me and my man running the place. Been there, done that
Yeah.
with big business, retirement plans.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
I agree with that. I mean, if you can open a small business and keep it keep it small enough to where it's something that you and your partner can accommodate and it's fun for you, then that's the dream come true. I mean, we are encouraged so much to expand your business, make it bigger, grow, make more money, and sometimes it just loses its charm. It loses what you originally intended for your experience to be.
Yeah.
And that is definitely something that I like to hear. People have the dream of wanting to start a little diner or coffee shop or a bakery, and screw it, only be open 3 hours a day. Who cares? If that's what you want to do, then do it. And if you can make the money to sustain that, no one should tell you that you need to be bigger than that.
You know,
And I just think that we are in the day and age where you can tell your customers what you're willing to do, and they can tell you if they're willing to pay for it or not.
hmm um, right here, Carfree has a comment or question. She says, sometimes my focaccia smells like alcohol. Should I be tossing it out? Oh,
So,
there's your drumstick.
no. The smell of alcohol, especially, is telling you that your dough it's fermented. It's got that flavor to it. Um, Again, things can ferment so long to the point where you're not going to get that rising capability that you would when it was kind of at its peak of being ready to bake. So if your bread, say it smells alcoholic when you're looking at it, when you're feeling it and smelling it and stuff, and you bake it and the bubbles aren't that big and it doesn't really rise that much, you can say, okay, maybe it went a little bit too long. It's still going to be very flavorful and great bread, but it's just not going to have those big bubbles, that crumb that you're looking for, especially in focaccia. So if you feel like you're uncovering it before you bake it and you're like, whoa, that really smells alcoholic,
I got a little bit of a buzz off that one.
yeah, then you bake it and it doesn't really rise that much, then maybe you can try letting it ferment a little bit less time. Or if you're using just traditional instant yeast, that can it, instant yeast it just produces so much of that alcoholic smell
hmm
gas.
hmm
So you could maybe take down the amount of yeast you're using a little bit. I found that sometimes less is more when it comes to using instant yeast, because when I
Mm.
first started baking, I was like, oh, well, more the merrier. If I want yeast bread, I might as well have used 4 times the yeast that the recipe calls for. Who cares, right? But what I think that does is that makes it so once all that yeast hits your flour and water mixture in your bread, it's just eating as much as it can, as quickly as it can. There's so much yeast that it starts to deteriorate the quality of your dough, in that it's it's got too much of the yeast byproduct in it rather than the active happy yeast that's going to hit the oven and produce those gases that make your bread nice and fluffy.
hmm
So
hmm
that could be one of the things that's happening.
I'm getting a lot of people of asking, "Will you come back?" They love you.
Yeah, we'll have to do another one. We'll have to do another recipe. Put your comments below on what you would like to see us do next.
Yes, yeah. Please comment after I end this live. Please put a comment below what you'd like to see next, and Brad will come back. This is exciting. So, do I let this set overnight in the fridge? What do you recommend?
So, what would you like to do? Would you like to? Here's what I think you should do.
Okay.
Let's keep yours out at room temperature. You
Okay.
can bake this one tonight, and
Okay.
then put this one in the fridge.
Oh,
Let
I
it
can
go
have
till
both of them.
tomorrow morning. Yeah,
Okay.
of course you do. Of course you
Oh,
do.
thank you.
And that way you get to have your own science experiment about seeing okay, this is the one that went for shorter time at room temperature.
Mhm,
This
mhm.
is the one that went for longer time in the fridge.
Fridge.
And you get to taste and cut
I
into and
love it.
see the
I'll put it
results
in the
from both.
fridge right now.
Because, okay, I would say this one you could bake at like 9 p.m.
Okay,
or like, let's say 8:30.
okay, I can do that. 8:30?
8:30 or 9,
9.
I would say.
Okay, gosh, Brad, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so much. And you guys, Brad, my neighbor, Brad Ledo.
So
Yes.
good to be on the Calamity Girl YouTube live stream that I have participated in, seen so much about. Thank you all for watching today. I know I'm excited to see the results from this, but I think this was a really good example of what you can expect as far as what it takes to reserve a little bit of time for bread making, especially bread making using natural yeast, aka sourdough starter. So it'll kind of give you guys that little bit more accurate mental picture of it rather than just watching a YouTube video where they are cutting to each different process.
Mhm.
This kind of gives you that live action feel of this is the kind of time I need to reserve to do this. And these are the different steps and when they happen in the whole process. Because what's nice about this is it doesn't have cuts. We're not just saying, okay, cut it. Yeah, take this dough, throw it away, and yeah, take the one that we made earlier. Yeah, ooh, look, you see that? And,
Yeah.
this gives you a very accurate representation of what this process is like in case you guys want to try it.
Knucking Futs. 5150. I love that name. Says great job. Yeah. They really like you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, they really like you. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
When you want, if you want to go watch this video again, that it'll be ready almost immediately, but it won't be ready until tomorrow morning with the comments
Right.
or with the live chat.
Right.
So
Okay.
if you want to read, things that we missed.
Oh, I'll watch it, everybody.
Me too. Okay, guys, thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank
All
you.
of the likes. You guys are amazing. Thank you for helping. For helping. You guys are great.
Thank you for all your good questions too.
Yes.
And make sure to comment below what we should do next.
That's right. And let's give them a wave. Okay, and a bat wing. You be proud of that flapping bat wing. Okay, guys, we'll see you later.